And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this Tuesday, March 4th, 2014. I am your co-host, Joe Hagmann, along with my father, Doug Hagmann. You're ready for 3 hours of unbiased, uncensored news and analysis, where we look beyond the headlines and bylines and bring you the truth behind the news. And there's my dad, just a little late signing on.
Hey, how you doing? You all right with this?
Doing great.
All right.
Doing great. Sounds great. And got a lot of announcements here we're going to get into before we start the show.
Take it away.
Tonight we have in hour two, as usual.
Do you need this paper, by the way?
No, I got it over here.
All right.
We have a great week lined up for you guys, as well as a special Sunday show. Tonight, Stan Deyo in the second hour, as always, in Stan's Corner. Tomorrow, we will be joined by Paul McGuire. Now, folks who might be listening new, or have not heard, we are going to be attending a prophecy conference in Orlando, March 28th through March 31st. It's going to be one of the biggest conferences of the year, and it is being put on by Prophecy in the News. They're going to have a bunch of great speakers there, from Paul McGuire, Russ Dizdar, Gary Stearman, Jonathan Kahn, Bill Salas, L.A. Marzulli, Chuck Misler, and so many more. I don't want to leave anybody out, but so many more. And before the conference, from now until the conference starts, we are going to be interviewing as many of the speakers that will be there as we possibly can. Also, for those who can't attend, if you go to prophecyinthenews.com, they have a $50 live streaming value here, where you can buy the live streaming of the whole conference for $50 and keep it for 30 days and watch it for 30 days, up to 30 days after the conference ends. So a cheap and alternative way to really attend the conference, just not in person. And I would suggest anybody who's able to do that to go ahead and do that, even if you got to get a couple people together to chip in and watch it together.
Yeah, 5 people, $10. You know, I mean, really, it's good.
So this week, as I said, tonight, Stan Deyo in the second hour. Tomorrow, Paul McGuire for the whole show. Thursday, Russ Dizdar will be with us for the whole show. Friday, we're going to have John Moore on for the first and second hour. And then we have a special show with Steve Quayle and Pastor David Langford on Sunday. And that's going to be a great show, spiritual show, as they always are. And I think that's all for this week.
Wow. Okay, so it's a full week, folks. It really is. And
guests the rest of the week and a special Sunday show.
Exactly. And we've got a lot of news to get through. If you've been wondering what's going on with our website, HomelandSecurityUS.com, where it's not been updated. However, I will say this, Joe, I think you uploaded the program from last Friday, correct? With Wayne Jett
on Blog Talk Radio. And let me double check this right now. But
all right,
Troy from Christians United Broadcasting Network was going to upload the broadcast back to Blog Talk. So instead of trying to go there and play the archive from Friday and getting nothing but dead air or nothing to download, there should be or will be a episode, the episode we had on Friday with author Wayne Jett. It should be available there, and we will provide the link as soon as we. I haven't looked for it yet, so
okay. And let me explain something to people too. We are using our client service or platform is Blog Talk Radio, just so people understand this. And people say, "Well, you're pretty lame. You're just an internet radio show." Well, number one, the future. I believe the future is internet radio, MP3 broadcasting, broadcasting on demand. Remember what W said yesterday. That people who are listening to the show are listening to it on purpose. And how many of us listen to talk radio, getting in and out of our cars, running errands, and we listen to it because it's on, for example. We're not, well, and some of us who are in perhaps an office setting or working or whatever will purposely listen to, I don't know, if Glenn Beck comes on at 9 o'clock in the morning your time, or 12 or whatever time it might be, you set out to listen to that program, perhaps.
Yeah. When I'm in the car and say Glenn Beck's on or Mark Levin, one of the few I can actually tolerate and also see through, what is truth and what is, their opinion. I will always tune into those, or a classical music station if I can find it, because there is nothing else on the radio.
Exactly. Well, here's the point, folks, that I'm trying to make is this, and I'll just be really forthright with you folks. We have been courted by a network, a radio network. Why? I don't know. Okay, I mean, we're not that good in terms of being talk show hosts. However, our popularity is there. However, and here's the big however, in syndication. There's a lot with syndication. We would be allowed to, of course, full editorial control, but to me that's only good until you're not allowed full editorial control. However, the format would change. In other words, we've got an hour. We give our guests time to speak uninterrupted. And I was talking to Steve Quayle about this. I said, I asked him, would you, for example, go with a syndicated opportunity and have to change the program clock where you're stuck with 20 minute segments basically. You got 20 minutes and then 10 until the bottom of the hour break, and then 15 and then another 15. The program is broken up. Or would you stick with the internet radio and provide the hour format, but make your program less accessible for terrestrial listeners? Well, obviously we're choosing to stay as an internet program. So this is by choice because of the lack of programming that would be available, or the lack of programming time we would have, and we'd have to change our clock. I don't know if you folks agree with that or not, but
there are some ways around that, some things we can do, possibly stick to this same platform on Blog Talk at the same time, follow the regular breaks with the networks. It would be a little awkward and weird, but we would still have the basic time allotted on Blog Talk.
I keep hitting the wrong buttons here, and you want me to,
well, no, this would
something like that, right?
Yeah, this is something we have to figure out. I mean, if we decided to do the network thing, I think with going with a network who is willing and open to the content, and will, basically giving us a word that they would not ever try to limit the content of the show. If we got that far and that's what they were willing to do, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea, except for the working around the time issues, as you said.
Right. And yeah, it's, I don't know. There's just a lot to it, but I just want to mention that, folks, and we're always looking for new ways as well. But with the issue on Friday, and this, I guess this is what reminded me, or this is why I brought it up. With Friday's program, it was interesting because the program just vanished. And even the people at Blog Talk said, hey, you know what? We've never seen this before. Look, I don't know. And you said, Joe, it happened to other programs as well.
Yeah, there's a community forum for hosts on Blog Talk Radio, and I saw at least two other shows that said that they could not access their archive from Friday, and that when you went to download it, there was nothing to play or download. So,
well, the conversation I had with the representative, she said, boy, you had a lot of calls. You had a lot of listeners. You had a lot of this. You had a lot of that. But you didn't have a program.
They said you had to call in as a host.
Right.
And they said we did not call in as a host, which, if that were the case, we would have never been able to have a program or have callers or any of that stuff.
Right. And I said, how much sense does that make? To her, she said, it makes no sense. I've never seen this before.
I mean, we could even call in as guests, but it will say waiting for host to call in. If we never called in as host, we would not be able to have a show. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
So
that's right. Yeah.
Maybe it was a glitch or.
Well, it was a heck of a glitch, to be sure. And folks, I am working on answering emails. Okay, I'm so far behind. But I will say this: yesterday's show, if you have a chance, please go back and listen to the second hour. Well, listen to the whole thing. I mean, I think the whole show is good, but the second hour when W called in as a guest, and he was on Sean David Morton's show yesterday. I didn't know that, for 2 hours, and he's getting around. So, okay, I want to play this sound clip. This is something I uploaded here. It's 17 seconds, and this sets the stage, ladies and gentlemen, for tonight's show.
How much are you worth?
I have no idea.
How much do you want?
I just want to know what you're worth. Over $10 million?
Oh, my, yes.
Why are you doing it? How much better can you eat? What can you buy that you can't already afford?
The future, Mr. Gitz. The future.
All right. I don't know how many remember that little bit of audio from the movie Chinatown back in 1974. That's really what it's all about. It's about the future. What we're seeing in Ukraine, what we're seeing here in America, it's about the future. And I was on Tulsa radio this morning, KFAQ, at 6:35, I think it was their time anyway, talking with Pat Campbell about the dead bankers, about the banker suicides. And we didn't have enough time to get into this, but how the banker suicides are related to the banker deaths, the deaths of the financial people are related to what's going on here. It's a collapse of our economy. And Joe, you've got something about the economic collapse I think that we're going to start the program off with that's relevant. We've been telling you this all along.
Yeah, an interesting piece today from the Telegraph. It says, so Russia is going to abandon the dollar as reserve currency. Good luck with that one, by author Jeremy Warner. It says, I've already explained why meaningful trade and financial sanctions against Russia are a non-starter. Everyone would lose from such action. Europe would be pushed back into recession, Russia into financial meltdown. This is not the sort of self-harm Europe is prepared to contemplate right now. Indeed, thanks to the indiscretion of a UK official who has snapped going into Downing Street with his briefing documents on display for all the world to see. We know this to be the case. Trade and financial sanctions have already been ruled out. However, this does not seem to have stopped the Russian threatening retaliatory action against the threat of non-sanctions. One possibility, says the Kremlin economics aide Sergei Glazvev, is for Russia to abandon the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency, or to figure out a way to use a new payment system that is not reliant on U.S. dollars for international transactions. It goes on to say, the inevitability of the decline of the dollar as the world's major reserve currency is a process that is on a very long fuse and basically depends on China eventually displacing the U.S. as the world's largest economy. And this author stipulates that it's not going to happen anytime soon, but not that it won't happen. And as I take the facts of this article being
what's the
Russia,
definition of soon, though, Joe? See,
right.
That's the issue.
I mean, this author lays out a lot of opinion, but there are facts inside this article, such as Russia wanting to move away from the dollar as a world reserve currency, and about the financial sanctions that would pretty much put the whole global economy back into a recession, and also Russia teaming up with China as two powerhouse nations, which China wants to replace the world as a U.S. or as a world reserve currency, wants to replace the dollar, and Russia working with China towards that goal, and at least doing so, at the very least, from his country, removing it from a tool they use, the dollar, as a tool they use, and moving to gold or other currencies as a way to run their business. This author says it's not going to be easy or really quite possible for Russia to do it alone, and that the dollar will eventually, but not soon, he says it's a long process, lose the status.
Right, but here's the deal. Russia is primed up. They feel they've been abused, and they're not wrong with that. The Russians know exactly where all of their issues are coming from. That is coming from the United States, or actually more appropriately, the Western influences, the Western intelligence agencies, the CIA, the MI6, the Brits, the French, the NATO group. The globalists are behind this. And the globalists are pulling the strings of the U.S. and Great Britain and so on. And, well, Joe, and here's the other issue, too, because people are saying, well, it's World War III. Well, it very well is World War III. But one army goes after another army on their strong points. In other words, who would go up against the U.S. military? Granted, Obama is defanging our U.S. military in a very extensive rate, but the weak underbelly is our dollar.
Yes, the weak part is our dollar, and it's not due to the dollar itself, but to the actions of presidents from present all the way back to
Wilson.
its inception, right, of the Federal Reserve, that have, from Wilson setting up the Federal Reserve and letting it be the mechanism which controls the printing and issuing of currency, to Nixon and the gold standard, to even how big of an effect Wall Street and the bubbles that they've created through the fractional reserve banking and corrupt banking have damaged the dollar to where we're now printing currency, printing money, like the Weimar Republic did, like so many other nations have done, only to lead to hyperinflation and a collapse of the economy.
And something, I got an email today. I saw, again, I couldn't respond to it, but I mentioned yesterday during the show that, for example, the lifeboats in the Titanic were not full to capacity. Of course, the Titanic had fewer lifeboats than necessary or required, and of course, the Titanic was thought to be unthinkable. But, folks, I want to go back. I want to mention this, and do your own research on this. And feel free to do this, because this is going to sound really crazy and really out there, but I do believe that the Titanic was actually it was part of a greater conspiracy. I know it sounds crazy. I really know it sounds crazy, but if you think about this, to get all of the opponents, or the major opponents to the Federal Reserve, or the banking, well, the Federal Reserve establishment on board the Titanic, they lured them on the Titanic, and who in their right mind, what kind of captain, even a seasoned captain, would go through that field of icebergs at full throttle?
What's interesting is I actually heard Ed Schultz last week say, when talking about the presidency of the 2016 election, and more overtly the 2014 elections for the House and Senate seats, as rearranging the leadership as rearranging the chairs on the sinking Titanic, or the captain crew on the sinking Titanic. It was interesting to hear him use that reference, admitting basically that this country is like the Titanic, and elections are nothing more than rearranging the workers on this sinking ship.
It's interesting to me. I think that the Titanic, the analogy to the Titanic, can be used in a number of situations when talking about the United States.
Right, and it's not just the governments that are warmongering and trying to bring about this really end of the world scenario in the grand scheme of things, but it is also just as much to blame on the American citizens who's become complacent, brain dead in some cases, brainwashed, who have become content, who have said, the United States is, proud to be an American, the USA is the best country in the world. Well, not, following football more than they follow what the laws are of our country and how things have been changing, and the overt gay agenda and other evil agendas of liberalism and progress, or is what they call it, that have eroded our social fabric and our values and morals. So, the leadership's doing its part, and the citizens, by inaction and ignorance, are doing their part.
Well, we are. And I guess in a larger sense here, and looking through the news items, looking through all of what's taking place, sometimes it's almost as if, how much more can we listen? How much more can we say? And when we get to that point, it's almost we kind of not lock up, but we get information overload. There's a lot more to say. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing shows. And there's a lot more to hear. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening. I think against the backdrop of yesterday's program, both the opening hour and the second hour, and when our intelligence insider was on, I think we have to look at things in a slightly different way. I think we have to look at things that in a fashion where it can happen here, and that's the biggest hurdle I think people have to get beyond is well, it can't happen here. Why? Because it's never happened to the United States. The currency collapse in the type that we're talking has never historically happened, and of course the dollar is not going to is not going to be killed. I mean, that's just lunacy to think that. It's lunacy to think that there are people out there who are attempting to kill the U.S. dollar and kill the currency. Well, there's that cognitive dissonance and the normalcy bias that we talk about all the time. And I think that we have to really, we talk about this on, and you might think, well, geez, we're repeating this. And yeah, I think it needs to be repeated, because what's taking place in Ukraine, what's taking place in the Middle East, what's taking place at the hands of this puppet government, folks, is all part of a larger agenda. You know, like yesterday, for example, we heard from our intelligence insider, okay? It took the U.S., NATO, 4 attempts to get us into Syria, you know, from Benghazi through last September. When that didn't happen, well, it was set up as going to be a 1-2 punch with the Ukraine. But think about this. Putin sees himself as Russia's John Wayne. He's not about to be humiliated and degraded. He saw his country humiliated and degraded when we took out the Soviet Union back in the 80s and 90s. That's fresh in their mind. That's fresh in his mind. Think about the support Putin's got at home in his country. Or think about the support Obama's got in our country. 2 totally separate things. The public is behind Putin. The Russian public is behind Putin. How much of the American people are behind Obama? Few, relative to what's going on in Russia. The Russians are primed up; they're ready to act. And you saw, folks, the military or the ICBM test by Russia. Did you not? That's a message to Obama. The ICBM test. That was a warning shot at Obama. And as I mentioned before, yesterday, the phone call, and I've got this on multiple sources, the phone call between Putin and Obama may have lasted 90 minutes, but how much of that was actual talk time? Well, it was in the single digits. It was about 3 minutes, according to sources, more than one source, as a matter of fact. And Putin kept Obama on hold during that time. Is that significant? It sure is, because that does show the fact that Obama is not respected. He's not feared by the Russians. Of course not.
Now, I heard you were talking about Glenn Beck. I heard a part of a segment he talked about how the world today, maybe in your generation growing up, the parents and the views of the public on communism and what they taught the children back then versus now and today, how the difference is so big that most Americans, and I see a lot of it, people siding with Putin or agreeing with him or saying they wish he was our leader. In all honesty, I can't agree to that just because I don't know the real Putin. I don't know what his intentions are. I don't know, people say his stance on gays are good. Well, Iran just executed 2 homosexuals for perversion. His enemies or his allies are the sworn enemies of real, freedom, like North Korea and China and human rights.
But I think you could go back a little bit. What are you asking me about Russia or about the Soviet Union during my time growing up?
No, I'm saying I heard Glenn Beck comment on the difference between the education that was taught about the evils of communism in your generation versus what's taught today.
Oh yes, and folks, communism certainly is evil to its core, and communism, in my view at least, is what the United States is heading to by plan. And you go back to Representative Herlong back in 1963 when he read the communist goals into the congressional record. This is all part of a larger plan. What we're seeing today, the globalists need communism in order to usher in a single global governance. People don't realize that.
It's like Islam instituting, they needed the extremist, Islamic terrorists to implement this terror for the Patriot Act and stuff.
Right. And folks, too. Hey, did you wonder why, for example, Bush was very overly cautious when it came to this radical element of Islamic terrorism, afraid to really... I mean, he was walking on eggshells, and then the people said, well, that's out of respect for the monotheistic religion of Islam. But then you saw him compare, or actually come out and say that Islam and Christianity, we worship the same God, which is totally untrue. But that's really not the point I was getting at. The point is, Islam is a tool in the arsenal of the globalists. Where that's right, they did use Islam. 9/11 before,
and Freemasonry and old historic documents from Manly P. Hall to some of these older writers that were around in the 1700s, 1600s that really were said to have an influence on the secret societies elements of why they're creating this new Atlantis or New World Order, this new civilization in America. And a lot of what they say is, they set it up as we would see it, rights delegated by God to the citizens for freedom and liberty. But I've found a lot of things that are contrary to that. And not only that, but the influence that these people have on, even in the Bible, it just says this. And I've done, Leviathan is talked about in the Bible a lot. And I've done some extensive research on this topic and found some pretty interesting things. And in Job, chapter 41, it talks about this Leviathan and what it is. But just briefly, to your point, it says this about it being at all the highest levels of government and the highest levels of societies and all of the powerful outlets of societies, whether they be groups, government institutions, organizations, corporations, that they are all run by the satanic influence. You could be a Christian, and from what I understand from the Bible and from their writings of these historians and Luciferians, it doesn't matter what your intentions are going in. Basically, you become a leader. You make a deal, and you might not understand it as Satan, but it's with Satan to carry out their agenda. And people that don't, like maybe John Kennedy was an example, which I'm not sure, Abraham Lincoln possibly. But you get the idea. We've seen, Bhutto in Pakistan and how many other leaders have been systematically assassinated who are against or have a different idea or ideology than what the agenda is.
Correct. Now, I think we all have to agree, or I think we all agree that we're entering the final aspect of America's transition into complete tyranny. We're really, and I think what we have to do is watch. I talked to Steve Quayle earlier today, and we were talking about what's taking place in Connecticut, and that, of course, being perhaps the front lines of this gun confiscation. I understand that Americans are really going to be subjected to gun confiscation. What's happening in Connecticut, the letter that was sent out to the Connecticut residents to the people who attempted to register their guns but didn't do so, or register their weapons or their overcapacity magazines, or turn them in, or whatever the disposition was required by law. They attempted to follow the law. They were late, and of course they received a letter saying that they were too late, really putting them in an untenable position.
Yeah, did you see the letter from the SWAT officer about that? What was it, the 100 gun owners or 103 registered guns and magazines that were late or didn't do it properly? This SWAT officer wrote a letter stating that they basically set themselves up to be SWAT team, and that's what was going to happen to them.
Well, see, I think that this is perhaps one of the most critical issues here in the United States. While everyone's focused on the larger Ukrainian issue, and focus should be there as well, people are forgetting what's going on domestically. And Obama, through the governor of Connecticut and through the whole process of Connecticut, is going to become ground zero for this I believe this, SWAT team or not, however it's going to play out, it could very well be ground zero for the gun rights crew. There are many, I was talking to Steve, and you can check out his Q alerts, but I do believe that there are many people that are preparing themselves for, I'll just say this metaphorically speaking, for battle, but perhaps practically for battle, because they're not going to take this lying down. The citizens of this country are not going to take this lying down. I'm looking also, folks, for a different way, perhaps, that the government might come at not only the people in the state of Connecticut, but all of us. Could it be easier? Would it not be easier, for example, to come after us using food as a tool? Now think asymmetrically, or some other means in order for us to comply with some restrictive, tyrannical, arbitrary gun laws. I guess what I'm saying is, certainly they can't SWAT team everybody. Well, I suppose in theory they could SWAT team a great number. But what would that do to public opinion? What would that do to the people in this country? But we do know that obviously one of their goals is chaos, and then to bring order from the chaos. Well, perhaps, you know what, folks, maybe the goal is to have some sort of a shootout and have some bloodshed. So the media, like people like Ed Schultz and others, can point to some place in Connecticut and say, look, see, these big bad gun owners, they shot a police officer who's just doing his job. Maybe that is the issue. It's becoming very difficult, for me at least, to really understand the end. Well, I know the end game, but the some of the tactics. Is it possible that blood will be shed in Connecticut? I think so. No, and you got to hit your button there.
As we said, it's going to depend on the amount of aggression, how far the Connecticut law enforcement wanted to take this is going to be the answer to what, if anything, will happen and how bad that will be.
Well, and the other thing, too, Joe, and this is a discussion that I think everyone could join in with and pull up a chair here at the table. The size of Connecticut, you just consider Connecticut as a state versus, we'll say, California or Texas. Look at the size of the population. Is this being selected for this action at random, or is there a reason why it's going to begin in Connecticut, or it's beginning in Connecticut as opposed to New York or California or Texas?
It could be the ratio. I mean, there's obviously smaller states than Connecticut, but maybe it was one big enough with a ratio that looked something that they could... Imagine this. They draw their lines like they are now. We have the people who registered, we have the people who registered incorrectly and late, and we have the people who refused to register. What if, through a show of force, they, being the authorities, intruded on the people who didn't register properly or did it late? What kind of message would that send to those that are holding out and standing up for their constitutional rights? Or more importantly, what, if any, actions would they hope to gain on the gun owner's side? Would it make them more vulnerable to registering? If they see a bunch of gun owners SWAT teamed, would it make them go out in the streets? I don't know if they understand fully. I think, and it would be my opinion, that if we saw those few, maybe 100 people SWAT teamed, you might see a few protests, but I don't see the people being engaged, seeing this as important as it really is.
Whether we can turn things around right now, that's going to depend on how many Americans are willing to learn their rights and make a stand. Make a stand for freedom. And for what? For the last 200 years, we've enjoyed freedom of speech. We've had freedom of assembly. We've had freedom of religion for the most part, among others, without ever having to really study or acknowledge or investigate or research the source from which these liberties are granted. Obviously, the supreme source is God, but delineated in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. how many people really have researched and studied the Constitution and Bill of Rights. Now, there's never been a more critical time when knowing our rights has been more critical and safeguarding them more necessary. So it's absolutely vital that we gain a better understanding of what the Constitution and the Bill of Rights contains, what it says. And we can go back to the words of Thomas Jefferson. It's vital that we gain a better understanding of what Thomas Jefferson described as fetters against doing evil. In other words, he said, if not, I fear that with each passing day, the principles of liberty will be lost. And Americans, half asleep, of course, will lose what their forefathers fought and died for. So, yeah.
And then we can have a debate on something I found from a 1651 publication talking about setting up America and the system of government it should be. But one thing I found interesting is when they came across this, and they said this about tyranny and sovereignty. It says, the name of tyranny signifies nothing more or less than the name of sovereignty, be it in one or in many, saying that they use the former word, are understood to be angry with them they call tyrants. I think the toleration of a professed hatred of tyranny is a toleration of hatred of the Commonwealth in general, and another evil seed, but differing much from the former. And what they're saying here through double talk is basically the system they're setting up is going to profess to hate tyranny, yet will be the same as tyranny and a tyrannical state as going back to the Atlantis mythologies and the ancient Greek forms of government, where they did set up republics and states, and those ended up being considered tyrannies in the end. And is that what they're doing here is a question we need to ask ourselves, or is it something that they've completed?
Or in the process thereof.
Correct. I mean, was it something that was intended from the beginning? Was it something that happened as usurpation came in? Or is it something that is new, and this old writer had the right idea, obviously, foreseeing what would happen here, was just giving his opinions and was right. But he also goes on to say that in this new country, the spirit of Rome has gone out, and it is going to assemble, and that the power of the civil state and the design of the new Atlantis concerning the doctrine of politics, it will be exposed and issued into this country as a part of its discourse and laws. So they have what they call, this evil has what they call the doctrine of politics, which is used as a control mechanism, just like anything else. You know, the doctrine of money, they also cite the law of nature, the law of attraction. These are what these satanic people, their philosophy and theology is. And they, as I said before, justify themselves to be able to inherit the kingdom of heaven, even though they are evil. They think that there is grace, we're under grace, so therefore there's no need to follow any laws. They're under grace, they can behave any way they like, and that's okay. And that's a huge deception.
Interesting. In another area of concern, folks, I don't know whether you heard about this. The Department of Justice is preparing to announce an expansion of background checks based on the executive orders Obama issued last month, or in January of 2013. I'm sorry, not last month.
And
go ahead.
I have an audio clip on the new birtherism from Chris Matthews. It's real quick.
Yeah, okay, we're going to get into that. You know what, due to time constraints.
It's the executive orders actions they're saying is the new birtherism, the criticism of executive power.
Okay, well, go ahead.
It's only a minute long, so
go ahead.
Here.
Well, why is the right wing freaking out over the president issuing a series of relatively modest executive actions, something he is far from the first president to do? Well, sadly, it fits a pattern from the right in dealing with this president, of course, and calling into question, as they often do, his legitimacy. Dana, this word lawless seems to lawlessness like he's some cowboy maverick out there in the saddle somewhere, breaking the law, shooting up the town. Where did the word lawless first originate? I think it's a second-term birtherism. He was illegitimately elected. Now he's behaving illegitimately. This goes back to the whole notion that the right has. They want to put an asterisk next to this guy. He really wasn't a law-abiding or even legally legitimately elected president. This notion that the federal government is out of control, that there's a 10th Amendment that's been ignored, that the government is grabbing power that hasn't been there before, and that somehow we better be scared in River City. And this seems to be based upon ideology rather than events or even behaviors of the president. They grab at these behaviors, but they really believed this long before he ever came into office, and now they're using him as the worst-case scenario.
So the abuse of executive power is being criticized, so they equate it to the new birtherism, basically an outlandish conspiracy theory that is for the wackos and right-wing people as an excuse to hate Obama and to say he's illegitimate and bring him down.
Well, we all know about the questions with respect to Obama's eligibility. You know, just because Chris Matthews and others, and even, I don't care who it is, if it's Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Donald Trump, Russia, or Rachel Maddow, it doesn't matter who it is. No one has convincingly provided documentation with respect to Obama's eligibility. And I see people who are writing in different venues saying, well, it's a little late now. No, it's not a little late now. The rule of law is never, it's never too late to enforce the rule of law. And certainly to expose the allegiances of this foreign president. It doesn't matter if he was born on U.S. soil. It matters more about his constitutional eligibility, and that goes far beyond his place of birth, of course, but that's not the issue that we're talking about here. In the context of issuing executive orders, executive orders have long been used. I mean, since Washington, in some form or another, executive orders and actions, different things, but nonetheless, they're there. But for Obama to play with or to act against the law of the land, which is the Constitution, via executive orders, taking Congress out of the loop and having not one person in Congress say, well, you can't do that, tells me one of two things. Either they're in on it and they think it's okay, or the second thing is, well, see number one. Because if I was a senator or a member of the House and I saw my power being stripped away by the executive branch, if I've got a job to do as a senator or a member of the House, and that is taken away from me through a stroke of a pen by the executive branch, in contrary to the Constitution, why wouldn't I speak up? Why aren't these people speaking up? Why aren't the politicians speaking up on the other side? Where are the Tea Party members of Congress? Are you telling me that they're all beholden to John Boehner, for example? Well, wait a minute. The law is the law. I don't care, John, if you're going to put me in a timeout or give me the smallest office in the wherever, okay? What about these people? And it goes back to what Steve says. There are no spiritual solutions, or there are no political solutions to spiritual problems. Where's the backbone of these people? But how this applies to the Second Amendment here is very interesting. I think it needs to be looked upon. Obama is using executive orders to expand the background checks. This is actually stemming from an executive order back in January of 2013. The question I have is why now, for example? And you just look at Connecticut, going back to Connecticut, failing to register as a Class D felony. All of a sudden you wake up and you're a Class D felon because you haven't registered your weapons or overcapacity magazines. And
Dad, I'm going to send it to you. I didn't want to upload it. It was about 10 minutes. But it is a town hall meeting on the new gun laws, and a citizen stands up and really gives it to the people holding the meeting, the officials, saying, basically you made me a felon overnight by, the stroke of your pen without anything I've done. And it is really, he gets into it. It's really powerful. He doesn't go crazy. It's not a rant thing. It's just speaking the law, the truth, and watching these political officials wiggle around it with their fiat law and empty excuses.
Well, it's interesting because people will say, well, it's the law of the land. No, it's not. There's no law that's contrary to the Constitution that is the law of the land. And folks, he's in violation of the Omnibus Crime Bill of 1994, which prohibits a gun registry in any form. Just as an aside, if anyone still cares, look up Omnibus Crime Bill 1994, gun registry.
And there was an old Supreme Court judge who spoke out on the gun issue recently. I saw this today or yesterday, and he wanted to add 5 words to the Second Amendment. And what those 5 words were, I'm trying to look for it and find it here, but he basically wanted to add the words to make it sound like anybody who is in a militia, only those in a militia had the right to...
Who's this? I didn't catch
this. This was a retired Supreme Court judge.
Okay.
And it was on the Judge Report, and I haven't... it was yesterday. I'll look for the article. But he wanted to add 5 simple words, but it reworded the Second Amendment to mean not citizens has the right to bear arms, only basically soldiers, those in the militia, and only during times of war.
All right. Well...
And this is a sediment. I mean, this was an old Republican... Supreme Court, and we see the.
I did see that. By the way, going back, I did see that. And folks, I don't know if you have the link handy to put in the chat box here, but the Connecticut veteran says I'm not going to comply. That 8 minutes.
Yes, that's the video I was talking about.
Okay, do you have that to put in the chat room?
Yes, I'll find it,
because that's very well worth, folks. It's worth downloading and saving to your computer or passing along to your friends and family. It's a very eloquent appeal or speech. It's something for your arsenal. And here's the issue, okay? Or here's another issue. If you look, for example, you know what? I'm not going to go through the regional crime or the crime statistics. I'm just not going to do that. You get the idea that, for example, in D.C., New York, Baltimore, Newark, where they have the most oppressive, Chicago, the most oppressive gun laws, you've got statistics that show that murders by gun violence or by gun is just tremendously higher, okay, than anywhere else. And this is another thing we're going to do, folks. We are going to, and those people who have sent me emails about the pocket constitutions, please make sure that the emails that you sent had your address in there. Mailing them out now. We've got a limited number of pocket constitutions to send to people. Those people who have sent us requests, we're sending them out free of charge. So if you've already asked for them or by email, and that's fine, make sure you have your address in there, mailing address, and obviously your real name, so we can mail them to you. Just send an email to me, and my email is accessible via HomelandSecurityUS.com. And those are being sent out. I just can't remember now where I was going with all of this, except the fact that what was I saying, Joe? I'm sorry. I'm all over.
No, I'm not sure what you were going to say, but I wanted to tell you I did upload that Mike Malloy clip. God is really angry at gays, which is not.
Yeah.
And the reason I did this is because I told you guys about this person named Mike Malloy I heard a few weeks back on the most anti-Christian, God-hating rant I've ever heard on public radio in my life. I have not found that clip, but I found something similar. And the reason it's important is this guy fills in for Ed Schultz, the Lawrences O'Donnells, the people who have the big shows on the progressive radio stations. Now, we don't have to play it.
No, we can play it, and I think it's important to play. because here's what I want everyone to know. When we began, or when I had said what I said about the militant homosexual agenda, and I've gotten more emails by people telling me to shut up, and in just that way, shut up, enough. Why are you talking about this?
Well, we have, as we said yesterday, the first ever drag performance, meaning, openly gay people in the military in drag,
right,
putting on a performance at a military base for the first time in history. We have churches openly embracing homosexual behavior as something that is acceptable, and not only that, it is promoting it and helping further it along. Any church that is not accepting it is being called bigoted and hateful, and is being looked at as going to be facing some kind of discrimination suits if it ever came to them refusing services to openly gay homosexual couples.
And herein lies the issue, I suppose, that we need to understand about this. It's not that we are identifying the militant homosexuals as being who are trying to change the moral fabric and laws. It's not that we're going after them or singling them out alone. The bigger issue here is they're part of a larger agenda. They're attacking, and they will criminalize Christianity. The criminalization of Christianity is in progress right now. And, yes, so is, in some cases, you might ask, well, how does Islam fall into this? Because Islam is against homosexuality as well. It doesn't matter, because you see, the law doesn't apply fairly to everybody, and that's the issue. Every time I've turned around investigating, for example, assaults on our freedom of speech and freedom of assembly and so on, I'm finding this militant homosexual agenda at play. And this is one of the communist planks, is to degrade the moral fabric of our country and redefine marriage. So it's not that we're a single issue. We're certainly not using this as a single solitary issue. This is a springboard to something larger. And of all the things that I've talked about, even abortion to this point, right. I've never gotten emails where people have threatened to surgically castrate me. And I get that. So this is the redefinition of tolerance as well.
Yeah, especially when they say, you are intolerant of our beliefs, at the same time being intolerant of everything aside from their beliefs.
Right. So, but I just want people to know that we're not focusing just on this one aspect of things, but every time we turn around, we're bumping into these people with this agenda, and we're seeing this common fabric here, or this common thread that's rending the fabric of our country.
Right, and I think this is the reason we play this. It's important for people to understand what is being spewed by this mainstream media as 10 people to 100,000. I don't know how many listen to this person or heard this and
this is pretty offensive.
Subscribe to this train of thought, but it is apparently dominant among many of the people in Washington, and it's scary. I mean, think about Sodom and Gomorrah. Think about all the unrighteousness on this world that God has judged as an example to those that live after that. And then think of where we are, and then listen to this, and the sentiment of people. It's not only let's make homosexuals have equal protection. It is, if you do not agree that homosexuality is normal, you are the problem, you are the racist bigot, and that is Christianity. And a little offensive language in here, guys, so just a forewarning.
The right-wing nutcases in this country, from the top of the pigsty, that would be Rush Limbaugh, all the way down to the sewer, which would be the people at the Rupert Murdoch Terror Broadcast Organization, and all the little tacky politicians in between, they have made the number one religious issue in this country the rights of gay folk. That's right. They're the ones who have decided that of all the issues there are, that might piss off their almighty God. That it's not biodegradation that would piss him off. It's not the destruction of the earth over which he gave sovereignty to Adam and Eve and their offspring that would piss him off. No, no, no. It's not war and rumors of war that would piss him off. What will piss off this Abrahamic God more than anything? If a couple of gay folk want to get married. Now, this is what the religious people would have you believe, and you think I'm out of line when I say they're all goddamn crazy? They're insane. This is the premier issue, according to them, that their supreme being focuses on. What gay people are doing with their sex parts. And these Christian freaks believe this so much that they travel all over the world, especially in Africa, where they can tell the undereducated African people in different countries, you know what? If you don't enact laws setting up the death penalty for gay folk, witches are going to come and run among you. The beauty, the warmth of Christian love, huh? All right, so it is not I who chooses to bring up the issues of marriage equality or gay rights as often as I do. I mean, I would anyway, but not as often as I do, except for the fact that the Christian and political right in this country has made that one of the premier issues. The Congress of the United States.
My inbox is going to be smoking now, folks.
That was half the clip.
My inbox is just going to be smoking from, I can tell you right now.
And that was tame compared to the rest. But the malice, and it's not just that people are against the teachings of God. They vehemently hate God and those who subscribe to the Bible, Christians in general, or true Christians in general. It's scary.
And I think one of the reasons, too, the understated reasons that we played this clip, and one of the understated reasons we were addressing this particular agenda, folks, when the situation arises, when there is chaos everywhere, people will beg for order to be restored. Among that chaos is going to be the ideological and spiritual divide of people in the United States in particular and in Western countries. They will be forced, then, the powers will take it upon themselves and take that opportunity. I shouldn't say be forced. They're going to take the opportunity to outlaw the monotheistic religions, outlaw Christianity, outlaw Islam, and outlaw Judaism in place of a state religion. This is their goal. The anti-gay, the anti-homosexual agenda is one of the building blocks of that, of outlawing the monotheistic religions. The anti-abortion crowd or agenda is another building block of this this state religion, because all of these are hot buttons where a vast spiritual and ideological divide exists among people here, especially in the United States. Well, we can't have that. And this Mike Malloy, the individual you heard speak, the venom that you just heard, is actually contributing to that end by stoking the fires. And one might argue, well, so are you. Well, no.
We're not hateful. We have no hate or animosity against any people who are sinners, as we are sinners ourselves. At the same time,
we're exposing an agenda versus him advancing an agenda.
Yeah, we're not going to tolerate or give in, for the sake of let's say love. And I have a whole nother, and people might take that wrong, but don't take that wrong. I don't mean it in the sense of godly love. But what they are doing is marginalizing and pitting those who don't believe in this pro-homosexual agenda, this pro-abortion agenda, this pro-New World Order, goodwill collectivism agenda as the terrorist. And that's what it's going to boil down to. And that's what the mark of the beast will be about. Who's the terrorist and who's not. Those who don't take that mark will be the terrorist. You will not be part of the society. You will be hated for the name of Jesus because you will be the only ones left that are not under the delusion of Satan, and you will be seeked to be wiped off the face of the earth because you are the cause, kind of like what Hitler said about the Jews in World War II being the cause of all the evils. That's what the Christians will be in this tribulation time that's coming.
Right, exactly. And to show you how disjointed we can be in conversation, remember, I was talking about the executive orders, too, about the Second Amendment, the January 2013 executive orders. What I wanted to mention but failed to mention at the time, again, disjointed, very awkward addition here to that conversation, changing gears in the middle of a stream of thought. I wanted to mention and make sure everyone knows that what is taking place right now is a consolidation of records, a consolidation of electronic storage of information on gun purchases. Now, according to the media, it's a consolidation of information on gun purchases that have been denied via the NICS or NICS system. No. This is a consolidation and electronic storage of information on all gun purchases on a federal level, folks. That's what I wanted to say. This is what people are not getting the truth on, and you can take that to the bank. What's taking place is not merely state registries, but a consolidation of electronic storage of records on all gun owners on a federal level. And that does include those who have been turned down, I might add. So and also that through this executive order and subsequent executive orders, you're also looking at providing or at least opening that data storage unit of gun owners to the IRS and also Health and Human Services, Department of Health. Folks, this is really a strong, very, very strong, very important part to losing our rights under the Second Amendment, because they will identify us. They have identified us or those of us who have guns, weapons in our possession. They have identified those who have been turned down. They have consolidated now these records. Now they are going to use them in manners that have not been prescribed by law, or at least by the Constitution. It's very important to understand what's taking place. Folks, at the top of the hour, we're going to bring Stan Deyo on. You're listening to a very special Tuesday edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. It is a live broadcast Tuesday, March 4th, 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann. In the studio with me is Joe Hagmann. Together, we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Stay with us for Mr. Stan Deyo, the real Indiana Jones.
Created and uploaded to YouTube by the Hagmann and Hagmann channel. To view the full show archives, please visit youtube.com/user/Hagmann and Hagmann.
Gentlemen, hour number 2 of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this Tuesday, March 4th, 2014. It is our hour with Stan every week, the second hour on Tuesdays. We are joined by Stan Deyo from standeyo.com. He is done so much and has so many qualifications, we would spend half the time of his hour explaining them to you. But with that, Stan, it's great to have you back on the show. How have you and Holly been?
Good. We've still been relaxing, and that is good.
Excellent. Got to get all the relaxation you can in these times, as it's just crazy and continues to get crazier by the day.
Well, we suddenly realized it had been a while since we had done that, and it certainly takes its toll if you don't behave yourself on that.
Yeah. We have a lot going on. We have snowstorms continuing to recruit through the East Coast, lower East Coast, and we have record-breaking cold temperatures. I know here in our town we broke a record yesterday for the coldest temperature in March, and it was 6. The record previous to that was like 1885, which was 10 degrees, and I know this is happening across the country. And
yeah, and Holly's just telling me it's going to be about 70 here where we are tomorrow.
Wow.
Go figure.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's about -5 as the what it feels like outside here right now.
Well, I guess with wind and stuff like that, it certainly could be that. I mean, I've been using that wind map thing we've got on our website there on the show images page. You know, that green thing with all the wind arrows and stuff. And I finally learned how to go to different altitudes there and look at the jet stream loop on that. And that's a very impressive, program, I guess is the best way to call it. It's an open program, open source program. But it's showing, you know, the jet stream has two vortices at the moment opposite each other across the North Pole. One vortice is over, you know, like Russia or something, and the other is over toward the North Atlantic. And these two spinning vortices link together, and the jet stream orbits around. It makes kind of like a planter's peanut shell look. You know, it's bigger on the ends than it is in the middle. And I don't know that happens often, but it's certainly quite an interesting phenomenon to watch right now. We've put up, I've only put up a few photos on the show images page tonight, but I've started a little folder that's going to be called Fun Photos, where I'll throw up things that Holly and I have done, or the doggies, or whatever, and just for a bit of a grin. If you looked at the site, that's what it was. That's on that page now. Anyway, now there are probably a few things you want to talk about and a few things I want to talk about. Do you want to go first, or what?
Well, let's let you open up with what you see and what's on your mind.
Yeah, I think we should give it to Stan. Hi, Stan, by the way. I didn't say hi to you when you came on.
Hi, Doug. I know I started right off into a rant, which is not the done thing, but there you go.
No, it's great. It's great to hear you, my friend. Go for it. Tell us what's on your mind.
Yeah, okay. Now, back, what was it, 2012, do you remember when all the states started filing secession petitions at the White House, where they wanted their states to secede from the United States?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we did talk about that together at some point in time, but this movement is now gaining steam again. In Colorado, there's a group here that's trying to take North Colorado and split it into to two states. One is Southern Colorado and one is Northern Colorado, but it's pretty poor planning on the part of the people that are organizing it, because on the left side of Colorado, Northern Colorado, there's one large division of people there, you know, like a county, and then there's a blank space, or it's a space occupied by the people that would be Southern Colorado, squeezed up between the left side of the map of Colorado and the right side. On the right side, there's a cluster of other counties, and it means that if you want to go if they form a new state up there, it's going to be going from the state on the right side. You'll have to get a passport to go across, or a state border thing to go across over to the other part of the northern state eventually, you know, when they get tight on border control, if they ever do. But, you know, California is looking at it. Western Maryland is looking at forming Western Maryland a new state. Southern Oregon and Northern California are looking at forming a new state together called Jefferson. And to me, this is showing the impetus, which hasn't yet, formed in reality, but the impetus that the Hopi were telling Holly and I about when they said the United States would fairly soon go into civil war and disorder and break up. And you can see how that would happen here, because with these people wanting to secede, and with the extreme differences of opinion, politically and otherwise, of the Republican and Democratic, the red and blue states, with that, you can see that their prophecy is probably going to happen fairly shortly. People are getting very, very angry at the government, and they're wanting things to back off a bit so that we can get back to the terms that we were founded with in this country. Anyway, that does tell me that the Civil War is once again a specter on the horizon.
You know what, Stan? Let me just ask this question because I think it's important, an important distinction. Is the anger limited to a keyboard-only anger, or do you think that the anger is sufficient enough with the American people? Is it been made personal enough through job loss and others for them to take action?
Well, I think it is at the point where it could erupt, but it's going to need a spark, to trigger it, where somebody or several somebodies get damaged so bad that it just infuriates the country, and it'll be something linked to this, the whole dichotomy of opinions. But yes, I think we're at very mad stage. I've just been watching, at the gun shows, how many people are now for the first time getting guns and ammo and stuff, which tells you they are really mad. I just don't know how we've made it this far without things starting to come apart. But I say that every week, I know, but we're there. We're there.
There's a different feel. There is a different feel at gun shows today where, 15, 20 years ago, people were talking about hunting and about what gun they're going to use to go hunting for deer. Now it's this very reserved, very somber attitude, and it's not like people are there wanting to go, purchase weapons and ammunition. It's almost as if they're resigned to the fact that they've got to.
Yeah, I know. I was in at a gun shop here. A friend of mine owns just yesterday, and he's built in a whole new thing underneath the shop there with a firing range and stuff for people to practice at night and for law enforcement friends to use and stuff like that. And one of the guys there was showing me a new bullet that he had. I think it was a 40 caliber, and it was all silvery and shiny and hollow point and kind of a big opening on the end. He said, here's what the government guys are getting as far as ammo. He says, this is an alloy, hollow point, which is definitely designed to kill you, but not only that, to go through most amateur or civilian, armored vests, bulletproof vests. And they have been doing some tests here, he and his friends, and have found insert plates that will stop those. But boy, if people have bought those, off the book type armored vest, or the bulletproof vest, they aren't going to work when the feds come and start using some of those millions and millions of rounds of hollow points they bought. They're stronger than what we get, and so they will just rip right through the plates in the normal bulletproof vest for civilians. And of course their vests are made out of the newer polyethylene or whatever plates, and anybody shooting back at them with hollow points, unless they're those new alloy things, is not going to make a dent in them. Might not knock them over, but that's about it.
Can the average civilian and I have not looked into this, so this is a legitimate question from nowhere, or from ignorance. Can the average person go out and purchase a new bulletproof vest or the Armour, the type of vest you're referring to, which military and law enforcement have, which is a different grade, for example, than the one I've got here? Whoops, did I just say that? Which is a different grade than the bulletproof vest of years ago. So can a civilian buy the new type?
In some states, yes.
Okay.
What you do is you buy the normal bulletproof vest that they sell to civilians, but there are plates that slip down the front and the back in various places wherever you put your vest on. Because sometimes they have lower, like pelvic plates as well. But anyway, you can just pull those plates out. They're made to the vests themselves are made to be reusable after you've been shot once or couple times at once. it dents the plate, so you don't want that in there, so you throw them out and put a new one in. So the trick is, go ahead and buy your vest, and then replace it with these polyethylene plates, which I'm pretty sure you can buy the plates by themselves online. I can check on that and see later, but I do. I'm just trying to find out while I'm talking to you. I do have I think it's called gauze. Let me just check that and see. I was getting medical stuff from this place, and like medical supplies and blood clotting patches and stuff to put in our emergency pack. And I saw on here, wow, not only do they sell medical things, they sell body armor. So I rang them up and I said, hey, look, I'm not military or police, but I'd sure like to buy bulletproof vest from you. Oh, no problem. So if you want to check them out, and I don't get any commissions, so don't get funny, but it's Galls, GALLS.com, and you click on the thing that says body or armor, or I think it says that. Let me just check it. Anyway, it's a little category up at the top where you shop by category, and you pull it down 3 or 4 lines, and it says body armor, and you get in there, and it tells you what each vest is rated at. What kind of bullet it'll stop. And so I did ask them. They said, yeah, you obviously don't want the sheriff or military things, but we can give you the civilian, cotton carriers or, whatever they're made of. And, of course, then, as I said, you can change the plates. And that's where the trick might come in, is you might have to use a couple of standard plates to stop those hollow points if you're worrying about the officialdom bullets, those hollow points that are silvery and alloyed. But other than that, for the average confrontation with another civilian or group of civilians, these bulletproof vests, body armor, will work for you just right off the shelf. And they do tell you, as I say, there's several levels at various expenses. And, of course, the higher power bullet that it'll stop, the higher power they charge. They charge like a wounded bull when they get up to those top end, let me tell you. But anyway, that's an Aussie term. Sorry.
I love that. Okay.
And they have plates. They have different plates that you can get there and buy and put into your vest, right? Made of curved ones and all kinds of stuff, But not only that, you can buy helmets, shields, like you see in the movies or in the news, where the police have these SWAT tactical shields that you can see through and charge the enemy. It's a body shield that you just hold on your left hand or right hand, and so that's probably even more protection than just a vest. So, I found it to be a one-stop shop for everything that the civilian would need and like to have. So anyway, check it out. That's all I'm going to give them a free commercial for.
All right. Stan, it seems like we're getting too old for this. I mean, I feel like I'm getting too old for this. I'm not looking for a confrontation. I don't know about you, but
no, I'm not particularly keen on that either. But if they come, well, I guess they'll go down with us. Some of them anyway. Hopefully, anyway.
Well, and that's the other thing. We were talking about Connecticut earlier, and I don't know, of course, with all of the problems in Connecticut. Let me just ask you, do you think Connecticut is being set up to be the flashpoint here with respect to the Second Amendment, the Constitution, the unconstitutional grab for weapons and such?
It could well be. It certainly is shaping up to that kind of naughtiness. It's certainly there.
All right. Yeah, I mean, it's got a funny feel to it. In my gut, I can't. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but it's interesting though that you started out by saying about the Civil War. A Civil War, and we were talking about this a couple of years ago. My source within the DHS says that this is exactly what they want to do, is provoke a civil war. And now, is that a matter of coming in and using tyrannical tactics to quell an uprising or a civil war? And notice I'm saying civil war meaning confrontation with each other here before the government. Or is this something that they want to do to have us kill each other off, or a little of both? I mean,
I think it's probably more of them wanting us to, I guess to get after each other, because, I mean, that's what the division is happening now about the wanting to withdraw from the United States and form separate states. This is because you don't like what the neighboring county or state is doing, so you want to do your own thing, which is go back to the Constitution. We get emails and phone calls from all over the country, and I've had one or two here in the last week where there's been kind of throw-off remarks made by military and civilian policemen in like a store or cafe to, a person that's just a civilian. And, throw-off remarks like when they're leaving the door and they've been talking a bit and saying, hey, you guys, civilians, you guys had better get ready and for something like an EMP and what happens after that. So whether it's an EMP they're warning people about and training for, or whether it's some other thing, it's the civil disobedience that they're trying to tell you, get prepared, and so that you don't have to set up things when it starts. But this happened last week over in, I think it was North Carolina. So, they're just little clues coming out, and certainly we might have something other than an EMP, like maybe Yellowstone or New Madrid fault releasing. Certainly the activity in Oklahoma, which kind of loosely connects over to the New Madrid, is of concern. And Yellowstone has been belching up helium, ancient forms of helium. And this is something that was trapped deep in the rocks underneath Yellowstone, millions of years ago. But when you see or get a report that a volcano is releasing helium-4, it's an isotope of helium. When it's releasing that, it comes from stores beneath the mantle down in the deep, deep rock. Now, if Yellowstone is breaking that open down there, then it tells us that the expansion of the dome there in the northwest corner is not only expanding up, it's expanding down and probably sideways. So there is pressure building up there that may not be as obvious as one would think, because a lot of the expansion is going on in the opposite direction to the surface. Anyway, this is happening now. The helium-4 is being released, and I think they said about every year on average about 60 tons of helium is released, which includes helium-3 and helium-4. But whatever the helium-4 normal is, it's several hundred percent, like several times its normal. And that might be something that triggers a catastrophe that is just like an EMP because of the resulting damage to aircraft and some power lines where the things short out from the dust and, ash that comes through, wet ash. But we are getting subtle little hints passed to us by various people. Some of them just civilians, and, certainly we have some deep throat type guys, but when civilians are telling me, I'm kind of think, okay, are they being set up? And we analyze the situation, which they found out the information, and then go with that. But I'm seeing more kind of believable, reliable type hints like this being given to civilians or being observed by them. In fact, last weekend, we got a call from a friend of ours over in Oklahoma City, and he said, you would not believe the skies over Oklahoma City today. I said, why? He said, because it looks like a tic-tac-toe board. He said, it is absolutely crisscrossed in perfect squares by chemtrails, and lots of them. I said, well, get a picture and send it to me, which he's doing. It hasn't come over yet. But and at the same time, I look up in our sky here, we're in Colorado, and clear blue with a couple of puffy little clouds, no chemtrails that day. So they do this, well, I guess, periodically over areas of interest to them. And
yeah,
it just
Stan, I'll send you some pictures. I mean, we get this all the time, and just I believe it was yesterday, I was watching two planes. They kind of crisscrossed. Both had chemtrails, and you see the planes up there that have contrails that obviously don't linger and stay in the sky. But then there was this little plane or this little aircraft that seemed to be following these two, but yeah, I mean, I've taken some pictures, and I can take pictures pretty much any day that's sunny and show you the amount of chemical spraying. But when I was watching that, I was beginning to think, what if they're not spraying in order to reflect the sunlight away from the earth to, cool the climate change, as they say. What if they're spraying so we don't notice what's going on in the sky? So we don't notice that the sun is so much brighter than it was 20 years ago. So we don't notice, other things flying around or other changes happening in the skies.
I guess that makes sense. It would take an awful lot of them to cover the whole country, but they try to tell us that it's normal air traffic, airlines doing that. And, I guess, okay, we've had some flights that were canceled, a few thousand of them with the ice and snowstorms over east. But, Oklahoma City, if you look up, you'd think that all of these flights were just missing each other to form all these, squares at once. I mean, you can't believe what they're telling you. It's just rubbish.
Yeah, and it just, on top of the effects that whatever is in these chemtrails, whether it be heavy metals or types of sulfur or different elements that they're spraying out there, Al Gore was on, I think, the Ellen DeGeneres show a few years ago saying that, yes, these sprays are going on and therefore combating global warming, and at the same time he admitted that he thinks that they're adding to a lot of the dry conditions we're seeing that make the forest or wildfires so intense, so much more intense than we've seen lately, which it's an older clip, and I'll have to look for it, but these people have admitted, from John Holdren and all these other scientists that are combating climate change, as they say, are working very hard to spray this stuff in the skies. And I've noticed, specifically with the chemtrails, especially in the summer, they spray on the horizon where the sun sets more than anywhere else, especially at dusk. That's like I can count on those sprays being there. And we see a lake. The sun sets over the lake, and I can see how it wouldn't have to fill the whole sky. I mean, if they thought something was going to be going on in a certain part of the sky, or they're going to have drills or different aircraft flying through different areas, they can kind of control and make a covering for the path of an aircraft easily.
Yeah, I mean, the chemtrails over our house are usually over in the middle of the day and early morning over east and going kind of with the sun. So, in fact, sometimes we wake up and the chemtrails are blowing in from Utah, to our west. They're just, I can't figure out the rhyme or reason of where they do it and how much they do. But we have a saying around here: if we get a nice clear blue sky, wonderful, used to be normal Colorado day here, and you look up and say, "Great to be alive." Wait for it. Before the next hour's passed, they'll have these darn planes flying over and chemtrailing the sky. And we all know that. I mean, it's just a general rule here. They'll screw up a good day. So, and again, that might be because the sun's coming through, like you were saying, and the extra radiation from that and the ultraviolet band. Certainly, we know that's happening.
Yeah.
Wait a second, Stan. Have you heard? And I'm not sure exactly the time frame or when this happened. Have you heard anything about the Omega Air plane crash, leaving this huge chemtrail or silver dioxide, perhaps, mess? I'm not exactly certain where this was.
I'm not sure.
Let me. I think. Let's see. In 2004. Okay. I guess I'm behind times here. Omega Air and Evergreen International teamed up to launch the joint venture Global Air Tanker Service, or GAS service. This joint Global Air Tanker Service venture clearly states that this partnership offers weather modification as one of its services. Let's see here. But apparently there was a crash of one of these Omega airplanes. I don't know when it was. I apologize. I'm looking just at a news blip here that doesn't contain all the information. But if you haven't heard about it,
no, I couldn't help much.
Okay, all right.
I got a package yesterday from one of your listeners. I've been having a bit of correspondence with him back and forth about some things that floated up on the California coast, onto the shore. And he sent me photos. We talked about the source of it, and I helped translate the writing that was on it, which was Japanese. But he sent me part of that. It arrived yesterday, and along with it, a little bottle of debris dust from a real chemtrail type process. And so it's part of the sample he got so that I can analyze it as well. It appears to be metallic, but they're real. I mean, Holly and me first, I went down over the weekend with this miserable cough. I couldn't believe it. It was just in your chest. You don't have a fever or anything, but you just hack. And she was thinking, okay, well, don't know what's wrong with you, Stanley. I'm pretty good, and maybe it's allergies for all this stuff in the air. And just before we went on air tonight, she started the coughing and this stupid thing. I mean, it's really nasty, and I just wonder, is it stuff they're spraying, or is it the winds and the aseasonal, atypical weather? With pollen. I know the pollen counts are high. I just don't know. But anyway, if my voice is a bit craggy, it's because of that. But with a bit of lemon and honey here she's made me, we're getting through the evening.
Well, we appreciate you hanging in there with us. It's the heavy metals, or the metals that apparently are being used in these chemtrails. I have a very grave concern about not only the coughs or the respiratory systems of people, but of course I'm seeing more and more cases of dementia in the elderly, especially, or the rapid onset of dementia. Folks, I really believe you're going to see more of this. And when I say rapid onset, it used to be kind of a footnote in the medical journal, the annals of medical journals, but now it seems as if more and more people are fined, let's say fined 6 months ago, and today they're being diagnosed with dementia. I just can't. I've got this real issue with the possibility here that this is being introduced into our environment, all intentionally,
Oh yeah, I forgot this. I was just trying to find this guy's note that came with the parcel because I haven't opened it yet. Hold on one second. I just want to say it as he said it about this material that in the sample here. Okay. It's very, very fine dust. Yeah. Okay. He said a friend of his put a little of the sample in some very pure filtered water, and something like monofilament started growing after days and continued to grow for a month or more. We used a particle mask when the container was open and had no ill effects. So before you open this, I suggest you do the same. Anyway, if it grows filaments, you start to think about that.
Morgellons disease?
Morgellons, yeah.
Okay. Interesting. And didn't they try to classify that as some sort of psychological disorder?
That and a few other things, but yeah, when you see what the people have, I mean, the photos of it and interviews of people that are suffering from it, it's not producing those filaments that they're pulling out of their skin. I've watched it happen. It's not psychological.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about, and people can do searches on these nanofibers being pulled out. People are pulling out of their skin. They're growing out of people's skin, and it is scary to think of the possibilities of what this could be, where they came from, first of all, how they got into the body, second of all, and what they're used for.
If it's like this test sample here, that it stops growing after about a month, it's not living, it's just some kind of chemical reaction or something. It might be that the people that have the Morgellons may look forward to the stuff burning out and, eventually working its way out of the skin. And they'll be cured of it as long as they're not reinfected with, by breathing it. I hope that's the case, because they itch so bad and it feels like their skin is crawling, that I wouldn't wish it on them for a lifetime. That's just unthinkable.
Yes,
I just want to say this too. Christy from Iowa is saying that she's got this terrible cough as well, so you're not the only ones. She's been suffering all week from this, and I've been hearing more and more. And you know, we've got this tendency to think, once again, the normalcy bias. Okay, everything is fine. We're living back in the 50s when things were seemingly fine, but we're not paying attention. And it I come back and it sounds like I'm beating a dead horse all the time too. And even I get sick of listening to me ask this question. How in the world, Stan, can we tell? I mean, it's almost like look up and because I was really a hard sell on the chemtrails until I got doing the research and things.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you explain to somebody that's not normal up there? What you're saying?
Well, one of our next door neighbor is one of those. He's an older fellow, and
you got one too, huh? Yeah,
familiar with flying, and I think he's got a license, pilot's license. And when I pointed up at one evening here, and I said, "Look at this," I was looking at the chemtrails. He said, "You're not one of those, are you? Chemtrails? Give me a break." And he said, Holly just reminded me, what he said to me was, "You're a scientist, and I can't believe that you'd believe that." And so, how do you work with people like that?
I'm going to tell you something, Stan. And listening to you, of all the people I would believe out there, and you're one of the ones, I should say, but the preeminent ones who really convinced me that they're real, because you don't overstate things. It's not the sky is falling every day. It's not. I mean, it's very measured and very calculated with what you say. So when you say something like this, if I was that neighbor, I would be respectful of your assessments, given your background, your history, and knowing, of course, the fact that you're very measured and very scientifically minded. So, but why are not more scientists coming out and saying, "Look up, for crying out loud, we're getting zapped here"?
Maybe they are privately and influencing the people around them without losing, their jobs or their peer status or whatever. I don't know. I got an email this morning from someone I didn't know, but he said, why don't you and the Hagmanns and Steve Quayle and all Marzulis and stuff, trying to warn everybody, just forget it because they aren't listening anymore. Just get yourself ready and forget these other turkeys because they're not listening. And, I think it's almost like biblical at this point where there's a sharp division between the goats and the sheep. I just see it more and more where those that are of one opinion are not going to switch. They've made up their mind. It's too hard or whatever. And those of us that investigate and try to help others, to see what's happening and prepare for it, well, we're dwindling in number. That we're some of our best leaders are dying off just from old age or whatever. And it doesn't seem like the young people are. Oh,
it's tempting, isn't it, Stan? It's tempting.
It is, and let me tell you, we've enjoyed this few weeks at the Holly's done the website. We've had time off together, and we thought, boy, years and years of doing this, what have we been missing? Look, you can actually kind of sit down, have a cup of coffee, and put your feet up, and wow, get your garden planned out and think about maybe a holiday, where you go away somewhere sometime. And we'd forgotten all that. We've been, I'm sure, like most of you guys, just nose to the grindstone trying to get this stuff done every day for folks. And we sneaked off this afternoon to go to that Son of God movie to see what it was about, because we'd heard, good and bad about it. And it was pretty much the biblical storyline, but there were some things left out that should have been included in some of the scenes and statements. But I looked around in the audience. Of course, at midday, it's school time for kids and moms and dads that have kids. But the audience, I guess we had about a half of the theater full at about noon, and we were cotton tops, all of us, older, gray hair and that kind of stuff. I think I saw 2 younger people there. But for the time of day, you make allowances. But when the movie finished, there was a spontaneous clapping for the movie. If anybody else saw any of the things that I did, but it just was, we were all on the same page and excited,
a friend saw the movie and said the same thing, that people seemed to appreciate it as they were, as you said, clapping. After the as aside from the Noah movie that has come out that is just getting torn up by real Christian critics, saying how it's been used through editorial control to really change the message of what Noah is about.
For those of us that are believers, we see through all that and see the storyline that's real. The sad part about it is that those that are borderline, haven't been saved yet or new Christians, they may not see that, and they may fall for the line. What I'm concerned about is, Hollywood's now figured out that Christian type, biblical type movies are getting box office, real box office. So they're pouring their efforts into it. And the thing that I say the most now is, okay, whatever complaint you might have about the allegedly Christian movies, the main thing to remember is to be on the lookout for the great deception, a huge deception, planetary-wide. And if people will just do that, then if they miss any of the conditioning or any other things that come in these Christian movies, then they'll probably be okay. But watch out for the deception. There was one line in this movie that Holly and I both heard. The actor playing Jesus, he said, "Look, my kingdom is not of this earth, not of this world." And then he said, "I come from another place," and it was like he was going to say planet, but it went place. And even though he didn't say it, you felt that in the phrasing, the accent of the word. So immediately my alarm bells went off. Look, I got to tell people, be prepared for a deception to do with, planets, aliens, that kind of stuff. Whether your alarm bell goes off from this movie or any other, just as long as you're prepared and warning people, look out, it's coming, and it won't be what you think. If you Google the Son of God movie, you'll see a lot of people commenting on it.
Something I'm thinking about checking out. I don't know about you, Dad. I don't go to movies often, but that is one movie that I might want to go see. And unless you had a question on that, I was going to switch gears.
I kind of stand, when you talk about the deception, one of the things that I always think about the great deception is, of course, the deception that involves this planetary visit. And that's what you're referring to, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm trying to wrap my head around this, and I think a lot of our listeners might be doing the same. I think we've been, and I think you mentioned this, or somebody had mentioned this, that really since 1947, I believe that we've been being conditioned for, ever since Roswell, whenever that was 47, I think, wasn't it? The Roswell crash?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we've been being conditioned for this planetary visit, or this announcement that there's this civilization, of course, where they're, I shouldn't say we're their offspring, but certain lineage. As I understand it, and correct me here, or maybe even walk me through it, upon their visit, will there be this announcement that certain people here within the royalty, or the exclusive 1%, or whatever you want to call them, are their cousins or their offspring? Is that what I'm? Is this the deception that we're talking about?
You mean that they might be aliens in disguise, or just not coming out, or something?
Well, yeah,
that they're among us, and they've been among us.
And I think they're among us. Not that I can prove that, but I do personally think they're among us and have been for generations.
And the New Age people say that too, that there are those that are among us that are not of this race of humans. That from the Planet Galactic Federation to all these different organizations that claim to have this information, they all do say, though, commonly, that there are people among us that are not human, but they are of the other alien races.
Yeah, you say the conditioning might have started in 1947. I'm thinking it actually began in 1937 when Orson Welles did that War of the Worlds radio drama that people were shooting themselves over, committing suicide and stuff, and that laid the groundwork for our globalists who were in control at the time, saying, hey, this works. Look at how people reacted to that. We can use that. Then of course World War II interrupted the conditioning and the plans they had. So as soon as the war was coming to an end, 45, then Roswell appears in 47, and you see the conditioning getting very serious after that. But it was more than just conditioning by our globalists. I'm sure that Satan's hand was in that, and that in the end he'll be in charge of the globalists who thought they were the smart cookies.
Gotcha. And it's always interesting to talk to you about this. I didn't mean to take you off.
No, that's fine. That's
topic.
Fine.
I find the larger topic about. I don't want this to turn into or seem like I'm trying to take this into really tall grass or the weeds kind of ground here. But I think I really do believe that you've got the Vatican observatory project there with their telescopes. I mean, what are they looking for? All of this is strange to me when you put together all of these bits and pieces of information out there. So definitely we're being prepared for something, and of course the deception that we have to watch for, as you said.
And the Catholic Church. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Sam. I got 2 questions related to that when you're done.
All right. Well, I'm just saying the Catholic Church is going to be guilty, already is guilty, and be more guilty of supporting our alien brothers and that can be saved as well, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure the Bible is talking about a false prophet, not being a person, but, an agency or a church, a false church. And good or bad, the Catholic Church nowadays has been ruined by people at the top, and they are going to sell their souls and lead a lot of their flock astray. And then this was in the third message, in the Lady of Fatima, the third message that was in her, what's her name? The one that wrote it, anyway, the girls that lived from the saucer encounter with the lady, in the sky. Her third message was unsealed, and it did say that the last pope would, lead the flock astray in the Catholic Church and would be responsible for a lot of them losing their lives and their souls. So the conditioning is intensifying in places that you wouldn't expect it. So,
Stan, that would be one, and forgive my language, but it's appropriate hell of a message to receive, and not disclose. I'm for disclosure being, sunlight's the best disinfectant, and of course disclosure of things, to me, to inform, to educate, to have it out in the open, to me, it's better that way than to sit on something or to change something and present the third secret for what it was not, as opposed to what it was. It's just me, but I digress.
Well, I heard, I know they published one part of the third secret, and it's pretty close to what what I was told by a Jesuit priest back in Australia, and he was actually with Pope John the 23rd when he opened up the letter, and he said he fell down in just an immediate faint, just could not believe what he was reading, that the last pope would lead the flock astray, and many would die, and lose their salvation because of it. And he was hoping that he wasn't the one. So when official publications of it seemed to come out of the Vatican and Vatican sources, in quotes, coming out so close to that, I'm pretty sure that what the Jesuit priest told me was correct, because he was standing there next to the Pope when it happened.
Wow. Just a quick follow-up question there. Do you think the Pope is the one? This Pope is the one.
Well, he certainly got the background, being from the order that they've got a black Pope, which is opposite to the Pope. The Jesuits, they're warriors and soldiers, and now that he's sitting over there on the seat of the what was normal Pope and not Jesuits, it is very possible that he won't waste time, and he'll do what he's got to do to put things in play. And it seems like he's doing that little bit by little bit, activating things that have been quietly being formed, like a global church that's bringing Islam and quote-unquote Catholicism, Christianity closer together, holding meetings between, Islam, Muslims and leading clerics in the Catholic Church and some Protestant churches as well. And I actually saw the documents and stuff calling these meetings in the Southern Hemisphere back as far as 1974. I had my hands on them. So now this Pope is sitting on top of a lot of groundwork that's gone on in the 3 or 4 decades preceding, and he may just be able to activate it quicker than you'd expect and support the alien brothers from space.
Sounds so far out there, yet it is exactly what the Vatican and the world leaders have been hinting towards and secretly working towards this disclosure. And we looked at Tom Horn's work about the Vatican telescope called Lucifer, and et cetera, et cetera. It goes on and on. A question about space, Stan. We have reports that there's an uptick in near-Earth asteroids that have recently been discovered, and meteors that have recently been discovered that are not posing a threat to Earth, but the amount of asteroids that have been discovered in just the last few months, in the short period of time, it has people wondering, are we going to see an increase in the meteor showers or in near-Earth asteroids that are coming in? And I guess BP Earthwatch has been talking about this, concerned about debris coming close to the Earth. And will these close encounters, or could these close encounters cause any magnetic effects, or earthquakes, or anything like along those lines?
Well, I think, depending on the size of it, if you get one like the Chicxulub thing that made the Gulf of Mexico when it hit, we probably won't have to worry about it. But something slightly smaller than that would make such an impact on the Earth's surface, which is kind of like a thin soap bubble when you go out in space and pretend that you are a giant and you can put your hands on it. It would be a very flimsy, spinning little ball that you could push on with your finger as a giant, and you would make waves go out from your finger where you touch the Earth because it's so fragile. And in that respect, then, if we have an impact or several impacts from large mass asteroids, it could cause earthquakes, because the pressures for the earthquakes are, and the tectonic plate movements are there already. We know that, and they wax and wane until an earthquake releases the pressures. So if they're all cocked like a firearm ready to shoot, and you hit the surface with a large mass, like an asteroid, the shock wave will go out like you throw a stone in the pond. It'll go like ripples like that going out from where the impact was, going all the way around the planet, meeting themselves the other side of the planet, bouncing back several times before it abates. So, yeah. And here's another thought, too. Instead of having 50 or 100,000 known asteroids that could be near Earth objects and a threat, they've now increased that to millions. And I don't know what new technology they're using to detect them and to track them and plot courses for them. But you don't have to not only worry about the Earth, worry about the moon itself, because we had one that passed, a tenth of the distance between the Earth and the moon the other day. It passed closer to the moon, 25,000 miles. If a large asteroid, fairly large, were to hit the moon, you'd say, well, no big problem because nobody lives there. But if it changes its orbit and its time of orbit and its attitude, we've got another one coming. Holly just telling me if it does affect the moon, what it does affect is tides, is earthquakes that occur due to the mass of the moon moving around. So if it gets significantly impacted by large masses, then it can be bad for us down the road for our weather, earthquakes, our tides, lunar tsunamis, lunar earthquake tides in the land. So if it's close to the moon or the Earth, I would pay attention to it. And there are probably a lot of those out there.
Okay. And this second question, I'm not sure if you had a chance to or even heard about this, but there are reports that in Crimea, where Russia is now taking over and invading, that there is this ancient pyramid that is as old as the dinosaurs, as they say in the articles.
I'm not convinced that is a pyramid. I've looked at the documentaries that are all pro it being a pyramid, but I really do think it might be a natural formation of rock, that cracked from dehydrating and became solid, mud formations. Because if you look at the close-ups of the external parts of it, on the flat parts, you'll see that it's rock that's like separated by cracking. It's like the desert patterns that form after a rainfall and then the water evaporates and these like cracked mud around. It's more like that, but in stone. So I'm not sure that is a real, intelligently constructed pyramid because of, neighboring hills or mountains in the region that have similar kind of sort of triangular pyramidal structures. I could be wrong, but they haven't found any writing or stuff, and the tunnels that they've found underneath it may not be as old as the formation, which means somebody may have tunneled it after the fact and used it as, a base of operations or something. So don't panic about that yet. I've really looked at it and investigated it. At this point, I don't think it's anything other than a natural formation that man has come in and tunneled into and altered a bit.
Yeah, and I've read some reports on this, and they're speculative, talking about different chambers and different adventure. There are people that have went down in there, and some kind of mythical stories, and can't get to the bottom, this and that. But you don't know what's true and what's not true.
What difference does it make? What difference does it make to us? I mean,
my big question is I know that they have this. There's this what the History Channel calls ancient alien technology, which would be fallen angel technology, and many believe it's hidden in these pyramids. That was really what I was thinking when talking about.
Well, I would look more at structures in Peru and in Egypt and let's see, in India and in some of the islands of where is it? In the Philippines, is it? Over in that part of Southeast Asia. These places are real structures that have writing, and even though we might not be able to properly interpret it, those I put more faith in as possibly being sources of technology. That Ancient Aliens program on the History Channel, that is so bad. So bad. It is terrible.
Yeah, it is just a deception. It is, from the zeitgeist to these ancient alien. They use the Bible to try to make their claim that, God is an alien really, and the angels and demons are really just aliens, and it's a cosmic war, and there is no true God. And the people who don't have a foundation in Scripture or understanding of the Lord so easily fall into this. Just like the people who say this about religion not being, started with the Hebrew, God making the Jews his chosen people and initiating Israel. They say that, this is a story that's been told over and over throughout the millions of years of human history.
They really shocked Holly and I the other day, about last week sometime. We tuned into that because there was nothing on else to watch, and so I thought, well, I haven't seen this one about Satan, it says. And the program, about the first third of it was, interviewing Christian ministers and just ordinary people about their views on Satan and that kind of stuff, and quoting the Scripture, thinking, well, maybe this guy is really pretty bad news, this Satan fella. The last 2/3, I nearly dropped my teeth off. I tell you what, when they start saying, Satan is really misunderstood. He was really coming here in the Garden of Eden, and after that in those legends and myths, to help mankind, to give mankind technology. And his boss, the God of gods, they say, wasn't happy about him sharing technology with the humans, and so a war started. And I could not believe that they were absolutely, trying to get us to believe that Satan was a nice guy. So bad.
Yeah.
So bad.
And a lot of in the Freemasonry, there's even clips on YouTube. You can search and find people being asked about this, and they say, Lucifer's not the evil one. He is the angel of light and knowledge and blah 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 blah. He is equal to Jesus. And in one of these old 1600 writings I found, they talk about how there were two goats. One was the scapegoat and one was Jesus. Both are equal, but Satan's the scapegoat of the evil, while Jesus was the sacrifice. And their justification on this in reasoning is just so it's deception. They are deceived. And I understand more about some Bible verses that talks about how the Lord will further their deception and make them believe a lie. And it's those in their hearts.
To the reprobate mind, yeah. I think
And these are the people that in their hearts, before they actually make any declaration out loud or belief, that they believe in their hearts that there is options other than Jesus to get to heaven.
Yeah, I think occasionally, when I'm doing something else around the house about this kind of stuff, and I ran over an obvious, observation about Satan that I forget now, but it was something to do with the fact that why would he be here on Earth, building weapons to fight God and to, in essence, kill him or try to or whatever. It just doesn't seem right if he was misunderstood. Why has it gone to this extent now then, that he's now going to be, the good guy and persecuted and whatever? I just cannot believe the in-your-face type denial of what the Bible says.
Yeah, very interesting aspect, and I think that speaks to the to me anyway. It speaks to the time period in which we live, and I think that we're on the cusp of something here. I can feel it. Stan, I've got somebody emailing me from London, United Kingdom, about discussion that we had about the pyramids, and Joe brought it up about the one in Crimea, but the Great Pyramid being on the a landmass, and also any reference to the pyramid, the Great Pyramid 19.5, and the symbolic measurements with respects to different numbers, like the numbers 5 and 7 and 19.5 and such. Any conversation about that? Specifically, this emailer wants to know about the location of the pyramid. I guess, writing to me, she writes that all 98 of Egypt's pyramids are on one side of the Nile, and they're all on the greatest landmass, or the most firm landmass. Any comments on that, as well as the numerology?
Well, all right, let's say that, the Sphinx was it predated the Great Pyramid as well, as far as construction date, and it had a lot of water damage on the surface of it, which indicate probably pre-flood. But now, when did we develop the latitude-longitude system, in a 360-degree circle? Who initiated that mapping scheme for the planet? I mean, when they were scratching around the dirt in Europe and, finally learned to build ships and to get out in the ocean and stuff, who came along and said, hey, let's divide the planet up into 360 degrees around, and we'll make latitude every 10 degrees, like this, and stuff in between it. This dates back to Babylonian, perhaps Sumerian times, because the Babylonian monetary system was based on 60. Instead of a dollar being 100, it was 60. Now, somebody back then, at least at the time of Babylon or before that, instituted the basis of 60, which somehow or another was used to create a convention of 360 degrees around and up and down on the planet. So these things being located at 19.5 degrees, say south or north of the equator, the pyramids. Okay, big deal. The Earth is tilted 23.5 degrees on its axis. So if we straighten up the Earth, will it still be at 19.5? When did the Earth tilt? Probably less than 5,000 years ago. There was an impact, and it did tilt the Earth. I mean, there was an astronomer down in Adelaide, South Australia, I think it's Dr. Brown. Anyway, I've looked at his computer program, and a lot of others have too, and he backtracked the spin and deflection of the Earth 23.5 degrees from a pretty much vertical position to see, with the energy and the spin rate, how far back it would be. And it was just probably pre-flood that we lost our vertical axis. Now, if we could correct the timeline of the dinosaurs and mankind and the division of the land masses in the time of Peleg and that kind of stuff, if we could get an accurate timeline, then we could see that the alleged Chicxulub impact knocked us off our axis and eventually will spin back upright over thousands of years. So if I hear you correctly, what you're saying is that 19.5 reference, for example, is really, well, that's an after-the-fact kind of deal. Yeah. Okay, I got it. We didn't have that numbering system or that grid map over the planet, at least we don't think we did, pre-flood, pre-Garden of Eden, or any of that kind of stuff. I mean, you just have to look at why we adopted that convention now in modern times, last few hundred years, and that the ancients built their structures on the sites that, coincidentally, our mapping system ties into, even though it doesn't allow for the 23.5 degree tilt.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, interesting. There are a lot of people that are, judging by my emails here, there are a lot of people that are very interested in the Great Pyramids and pyramids in general. So
so am I. I mean, really. I was telling you about the Babylonian money system. $1, like instead of being 100 cents, would be 60 cents, and things are done in multiples of 60. Take 19.5 and convert that to a system of 60, and it might be 24.7 or something. You see what I'm saying? It's meaningless. The numbers could be a totally different number system and mean nothing.
Yeah, I got you. But, well, all right. Well, it's all of this is interesting. We could talk for days on various topics. It's interesting. I find it interesting. You came on board here. We were talking about the real thrust of the sentiment of the nation, and I think that's a good place to kind of close up with.
Okay.
It does seem. I mean, unless you've got other things, believe me, people are just saying they could listen to you all night. But I guess my question is my final question here. We're all looking at some sort of series of events to take place, whether economic events, whether war. Well, this is one question that kind of fits in there too. World events with respect to Ukraine, Crimea, and such. Where do you see that going? Putin just fired off an ICBM. Any thoughts on the current global situation from a Stan Deyo point of view?
I think we're sitting at where the Balkan powder keg was that, started the last, or World War I even. It just only going to take a spark somewhere over in that part of the world, whether it be in the Middle East or in Europe. And certainly this situation there is a very strong candidate for that, with all the posturing and gesturing that's going on between the United States and Putin and the Crimean area there. I wonder, the Russians want to put ships offshore there. Is that why they're going for that particular piece of it? I don't know.
Interesting how that. Well, I know that we're. Yeah, Stan, my sources are telling me that we've got intelligence sources. NATO or the West has them all over the Ukraine. We kind of poked or have been poking Putin and goading him into this system of having to respond. Our military ships or military assets are spread out everywhere, and of course, and as I said today, earlier, and yesterday as well, the end result here is an economic collapse or taking out the U.S. dollar for the preparation of a one world currency. And that's an encapsulated assessment of what's going on, and I believe that to be the case. I believe that to be true. But you're talking about the in this case with Ukraine and especially Crimea, talking about Syria, an extension of our agenda in Syria, where Putin is they can't lose not only can they not lose the warm water port that Syria offers, they cannot lose the fleet that comes from the Ukraine and Crimea. So, and this is what we're doing. This
is such an incredibly complex issue that the smallest, like the butterfly effect, is probably going to set this off somewhere. My mind spins when I try to put all these pieces together and figure out who's going to be up who and when's it going to start the big deal, because the variables are enormous. And at our level of intelligence, not being privy to the top level communiques, we're kind of flying really blind and trying to outguess their chess moves or whatever. I'm just sitting back. Mentally I'm waiting. I'm thinking, okay, I can't do anything about it other than warn people about, the deception, something like that, and to get preparations made for not having electricity and food and water from the, Walmart and from the power company. Other than that, what do? I mean, we don't know who's coming at us from where yet, really. Protect your household with food and shelter and medicine and water. Oh, yeah, water. So... Definitely. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Oh, by the way, that we talked about that Garden Gold book, Holly's e-book last show.
Yes.
We're getting very close to 600 people who've actually entered the contest to get a free one. But other than that, we've been getting huge amounts of purchases of that book. Our jaw is dropping because so many people out there suddenly realize, hey, we better learn how to do growing our own food because we may darn well need that to survive. And we've just been astonished at the response to that. That simple little idea about growing your own food, you'd think that nobody had ever thought of that out there. Just amazing.
Stan, my wife and I were talking about just that. And folks, Stan, please remind people the name of the publication and how to get it, because I think it's so important.
Oh, right. It's an electronic book that you can download and print out if you want, but it's in full color, and it's called Garden Gold. And in it, Holly has several hundred pages of pictures, examples, instruction about how you can intensive grow food in a 4-foot by 4-foot area or 2-foot by 2 feet, whatever, using a Chinese technique of intensive growing, where you just plant so many plants of what you want so close together, they will grow, but they blot out most of the weeds and stuff, because so you don't have to maintain it like you do in a one where you put a plow out there and plow rows. So that book tells you something that's started in China, and she's enhanced the formula for the dirt, how you make your own dirt out of stuff you can get down to Lowe's or Walmart or whatever. But then there's a lot of technique in sprouting, a lot of equipment and stuff that you need to do it, which isn't expensive. But she puts all that into the book to tell people. Yeah. Sorry, what was that? Oh, yeah, she's saying it's very easy. It is written in a conversational mode, so that, it's stuff that we've done around here are doing now, with some photos in there of, what we've sprouted with and what we've put in the ground. So we're doing what we're advising people to do. We've done it ourselves. And so it's practical help, just, straightforward. And of course, the Dare to Prepare book, on our images page, our show images page, you'll see a thing up there that's Stan and Holly's fun photos. You'll see the first picture. When you click on that, it will be a picture of Holly, the day that we received the first copy of the first edition of her book, Dare to Prepare, back in 1998. And, of course, we went over to the local lunch house place there and sat down, had a really nice lunch and a couple of enhanced tea drinks. And you can see that she was just tickled pink, having written her first book and seen it in print. And now tens of thousands of copies have gone out. I don't even know how many now, but that book is a good companion to the Garden Gold, and it tells you other things around your house that you probably should consider doing when times get really tough and we lose the infrastructure that provides us water and electricity and food and gasoline and that kind of stuff. So she since the time she was a teenager, was writing this book in her mind. And her mother taught her a lot of things about, how to prepare, food and things, and how to extra things around the house in the crawl space, underneath the house there. And so she was raised with the duty, the mindset to write, dare to prepare, and has been adding to it several editions. I think we're fourth or fifth edition now, that I forget, but it's really practical knowledge that not only came from her family and herself, but from people who wrote in after seeing the first edition and said, hey, here's something else that works. So it's a community effort that actually kind of wrote that book in its present, form.
Well, having been very blessed to see the evolution, I've got the third, fourth, every edition, I think, since the third edition. I might even have it. No, it's the third edition, and to see the growth of that book, it's just phenomenal. Well, the refinement, I should say. Not that the first was bad, but it wasn't at all. It was very good. But to see how things evolve and how Holly has kept up with everything, it's just a phenomenal. You could tell that a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into the production of that book. So I want to thank you and Holly both for that. Holly for writing it, and you speaking highly about it. Folks, it's Dare to Prepare, a necessary asset for our audience, to be sure.
All righty.
All right, buddy. I'll tell you, time just flies when you're on. I just want to thank you so much for being a part of our regular Tuesday broadcast. You're such a blessing for us to have. You really are.
Well, you guys are to us, too, so we work together.
Absolutely, my friend. Well, God bless you. Take care.
And thank you so much, Stan, and thank Holly for us. And as we said, we can't tell you enough how much we really do appreciate your time.
And garden gold, folks.
All right. See you next week, guys.
Yes, sir. God bless.
Bye-bye.
Folks, we're late for a break here. We're going to take
as usual.
Well, yeah, I know, but
it's worth it.
Stan, there's so many aspects of things, so many subjects, so many topics that we could talk about with Stan. From we talked about the pyramids for a little bit. We talked about the current conditions here in this country, being ready for chaos or civil strife. Just to be able to sit down and hopefully one day, wouldn't it be great, folks, for all of the Hagmann audience to be able to sit down and have kind of a I don't know, just a meeting with Stan and Holly and all of the guests that are on our program. It'd be great to just sit around the table and talk, and and have coffee or tea or whatever with them. Perhaps one day we'll get that chance. Folks, you're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this Tuesday edition. It is March 4th already, 2014, and of course this is a live broadcast. That is, of course, if you're listening to this via archive, then it's not.
And this month is already flying by. Last month flew by, and this month will. Come into our final segment of this Tuesday edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on March 4th, 2014. Just a recap in case you joined us late about our schedule this week. Tomorrow, we will be joined by Paul McGuire for the whole show. Thursday, we will be joined by Russ Dizdar for the whole show. Friday, we will be joined by John Moore for the first 2 hours. And we have a special show Sunday with Steve Quill and Pastor David Langford. It's going to be a great next 4 shows. And as I said earlier, we are going to be attending the Prophecy in the News Conference in Orlando in March 28th through the 31st. And there are at least 25 guest speakers there, more than half of which have been guests on our show. And we're guests on our show. And we're going to try to get as many of those people who are speaking down there to come on the show before and maybe even during the conference while we're down there.
We're actually thinking about perhaps if we are going to cede some of our time during the week, that week, because of conference attendance and appointments, pre-recording shows perhaps, we're thinking about perhaps doing a Saturday and Sunday show, or Saturday or Sunday show, or a show especially from the conference.
Yeah, and
as well.
We're going to be down there. We're also going to have a few days where if we pre-record some shows, we will actually have time with our families with no shows, and we look forward to a few days off. And people say, well, don't work on your vacation. And, well, it's not really a vacation. It's we're going to get a small getaway, and then me and my dad will be attending the conference, which will be more a vacation than we ever usually get. So I'm looking forward to the conference. But we're going to do as much as we can to bring you, if we don't have pre-recorded episodes, as I said, guests who might even be down there who would want to do a show live with us. And people who are going to be attending and speaking at the conference will be guests on our show leading up to the conference. So,
yeah, we also have, actually, just to be clear, we also have business down there ahead of the conference that does involve radio business. Perhaps, there's some things popping there. So there's a lot of reasons for us being down there. Also, don't forget the Whitestone Remnant Conference in Bozeman with Steve Quayle, Russ Dizdar, Pastor Langford, and Pastor John Kyle. Who am I leaving out?
Pastor Langford, Steve Quayle, Greg Evenson.
Greg Evenson. Thank you. My goodness. Folks, if you haven't registered. Russ Dizdar, right. If you haven't registered for that, do so.
When is that?
That's May, the end of May, beginning of June.
Okay.
What is that, May 29th, 30th, 31st? Or?
Yeah, Friday's the 30th, 31st Saturday.
Right. It's right here on my...
Okay.
I guess I could look at the website for this, couldn't I? Actually, the Whitestone Remnant Conference is May 30th, 31st, and June 1st, 2014 in Bozeman. Guest speakers right on there. Go to HomelandSecurityUS.com, click on the black box there right at the top, Whitestone Remnant Conference, and register. It's $100. And we are going to be there in attendance, listening to these people speak. To me, this is really a movement of the Holy Spirit. To me, anyway, and I'm going to be taking notes, and of course, just to see Steve Quayle in action. And folks, this is the first time he's speaking at a conference setting since, for 20 years. So
yeah, I'm excited to meet so many of these people that we have had as guests who I've read their books even before we've had shows and looked up to for a long time as people who are dedicated to the Lord and helping people understand the times that we live in and what needs to be done.
Absolutely. So please do what you can. Bozeman, as I understand it, is kind of a very small community or small town. So there are things that have to be done in advance, more so than if it was in Chicago or Dallas. So be sure to get your reservations in and make your plans accordingly. I really think this will be just a phenomenal event as well. Enough of that. But this is important, though. People say, well, you're really... It seems like you're either selling books or conferences or whatever.
Well, we don't get out there that much, and we're attending this conference, not benefiting from it other than the getting to interact and meet the people that will be down there. So it's just such a good time. We went to a conference in Canton with Russ Dizdar just to observe, and it was fantastic, and all the people were great. We had a lot of people that came up and talked to us and shook our hands, and I remember that. And you can't buy memories like that. I mean, to have like-minded people who are dedicated to the same things as you are, who are searching for the truth, who are promoting only the truth without agenda, it doesn't get much better than that.
Well, you know what? Let me just say this, because I think this says a lot about our listeners. When my wife and I were talking earlier today about the conference in Florida, and we were trying to get some meetings that week in it, talking about, we've got this meeting on this day and such. We were going through that, and she said, well, remember, the conference in Ohio with Russ Dizdar? And I said, yeah, of course. We were talking. She said, I've got to say something, and she said, your listeners, our listeners, are the nicest people in the world. I mean, she was blown away by the people who took the time just to say hello, or just to shake her hands, or just to say, hey, keep going, or it's good to meet you. And I don't know. Look, we're all in this together, and we have to stick together. And I think that the cohesion that these events bring, if you're near and you can get to this, and it's not a financial hardship, to me, it is so important, because when we run out of time, and there will be a time when there won't be conferences anymore, when there won't be this, we won't have this ability. I'm not talking next week, next month, or perhaps not even this year, but there's going to be a time when we're not going to be able to meet face-to-face under the conditions that are being offered right now. So to me, we should take advantage of it. Even if you are planning our vacation. Well, we haven't actually. My wife and I have not taken a vacation aside from our anniversary last year, 2 days.
Well, Call what we used to do is private investigations in New York City vacation. All those weeks of sitting in traffic and dirty streets. And anyway.
Exactly. No, we have not actually. My wife and I have not actually taken a vacation. I'm going to say since 2000. Maybe 2000.
It's been a long time, and aside from my 4 or 5 day honeymoon, I don't think it's been since the 3rd grade that I've taken an actual vacation.
Well, it's amazing. Anyway, let's move on. It seems like it seems like a kind of a casual Tuesday, if you will. Sometimes we just need to just talk about.
We covered a lot in the first hour.
Yeah, we did. And
we got a few things we're going to hit here and take calls. We already have quite a few people on hold and only about 28 minutes left of the show. So 661-244-9839. We're going to try and get to as many phone calls as we can. Just a few quick headlines. Labor force participation in 2013 is the lowest in 35 years. That from a Bureau of Labor Statistics data release, that the precipitation rate hit a 35-year low of 63.2% in the U.S. in 2013. The last time it was this low was in 1978, and when it was also 63.2% under Jimmy Carter. And this is important because we know how they calculate the unemployment numbers and how they manipulate them, and the way that people who are not applying or haven't applied, who are not on unemployment, who maybe still are looking for work or gave up looking for work, they don't count as unemployed. And so much garbage and manipulation goes into these. But, we're seeing these. And I heard today all these casinos are selling parts in different casinos. They're parts of say they have an empire of 20 casinos. They're selling 4 or 5. And I learned that, some of these casinos have debt in the tens to 20 billions of dollars. And thinking, why would casinos sell casinos to other vendors or buyers if they're such, money-making things? Well, apparently, it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you don't use it properly, if you do not budget it properly, you'll be in debt. So anybody who's ever jealous or envious, I wish I owned a casino. Well, do you want that $25 billion of debt that goes with it? And it's not just, certain people or companies. It seems to be the whole casino and gambling industry it goes to show the recession and lack of recovery in our economy.
Well, somewhat related, but not exactly, is we have a casino here in our hometown, and I do know this a member of the security in the casino. And we were just talking about different things, of course, and obviously, folks, you look at casinos, the way they're built, the fixtures, what they have.
No windows, no clocks.
Well, yeah, but they didn't get they don't have all of this upscale stuff because people are winning. So people lose their money, and to me, I could never. I don't know. I cannot rationalize gambling in that environment.
No, you can't.
Oh my goodness, it just drives me insane. Kind of like playing the lottery. I just don't get people who anyway.
We used to travel. We'd come across different Indian reservations they used to have cheaper gas, and there's a lot in New York, and some of them had casinos. And my dad took me to a few. I remember once when I turned 21, and if you went to spend $20, he'd act like somebody punched him in the stomach and took his wallet.
Right. And because look. Well, folks, we don't have to get into that, but what really struck me when I was talking to the gentleman at the security office at our local casino is the fact that there seems to be more people. More people are coming in, and they're spending more money. Now, how is that?
Well, you know what is interesting? When you started talking, it reminded me of in the newspaper, they post every week how much the casino intakes as a whole, how much it gives back to the players, and what the profit is. I've noticed since the opening, however many years ago, to today, it only takes in about half the money that it did when it opened, the first year it opened. So there,
but how is that? How does that comport with the figure that people are spending more?
I don't know,
money?
But I'm telling you, if we get a chance, and I can do it, just check out, the first year the casino opened and the income it made. And the more income it makes, the more it pays out. There's a percentage that they work off of for profit there. But I'm telling you, it's like half of what the first year was.
And somebody just reminded me here, just invest in Wall Street, and you'll be fine.
Well, yeah, the Dow went up almost 300 points today, so why not? It's almost at an all-time high. But we're going to go to the phones, and we can get into anything we covered tonight or anything that's on your mind. We'll start at 906, area code first. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, 906. What's on your mind tonight?
All right, gentlemen. How are you doing tonight?
Very well.
A little off my game, but otherwise okay.
Pretty exciting time to be alive, I know that. Have you guys heard about that dam about the Hanford in Washington?
No, not me. What's going on?
Big crack in it, 65 foot long. They say if it breaks, it'll take out that Hanford nuclear plant that's been...
Okay. Yeah. Is this the one that came out and said that there were construction and structural flaws in, I think, 6 out of the 12 tanks or something along those lines?
Yep, that was at the Hanford, but it's the dam that's just above that's got a 65-foot crack in it that they say is 65 feet long, 6 inches wide. That is pretty thrilling thing to be happening right now. But to get back to the subject, no, it can't be good at all. But I mean, our whole infrastructure is this way. I mean, we're a dying society because we look the wrong way. But do you feel that this plan on the Ukraine was a way to pull Russia back away from Syria? Is my question.
Absolutely, 100%. You're actually taking the globalists are actually making Putin fight in his front yard or backyard, or however you want to say it. Yes, absolutely, 100%. That's part of it. Yes.
Yeah. So you see maybe a back door going back into Syria, then maybe with a little more oomph in it this time than what they have been doing. That is what I'm thinking. Is
very astute, caller. Yeah, very astute.
And I'll ask the question. The big push to get Assad removed as Syria's leader. Where is that same worry from the administration? Why have they left him there? I think that's something we need to ask.
Right. Well, it's not just left him there. I mean, here you haven't really heard nothing about it for the last month and a half. Never heard nothing about Ukraine, and all of a sudden, in 2 days, it's a total mayhem, and it's like take the eyes off of everything else, just for we can, the magician's trick. Watch this hand while I do something else. So I was just trying to get your take on that. I mean, it's just a very thrilling time to be alive, I guess. If you see what's coming ahead, you don't fear it. It's what you leave behind that you should fear. So God bless you.
Well said.
Keep it up. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your call. God bless you.
Great call. Thanks.
Yeah.
We're going to move right along here to area code. We go to 805. 805, you're up next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hello.
Good evening.
How are you guys? And I'll just get right to the point. I was wondering if you heard on John Wells' show, Gary Yangdis, I believe. He talked about over in Japan, and he was talking about, we have this technology, and there's a massive cloud. He said 1,000 miles, I thought he said, from Hawaii, and they have, this was February the 24th on his show, and he said that it's been there for a year. It's like 70,000 feet in the air, and the technology they have is holding it. And then they said that's why they stopped the weather from going to California. And he said, John says, well, why are they holding it? He says, because it's full of radiation. And he said that the technology has a limitation, and it's starting to overflow it. And he said that California's going to get a lot of rain the next 4 or 6 weeks, and if it is, like he says, full of radiation, he says, I could see hundreds of thousands or 1 million people leaving California. I just wonder if you heard about that.
No. This is something, it's interesting how relationships do develop. I'm going to attempt to talk with Mr. Wells about this. But what you're saying is this cloud is a radioactive cloud? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and apparently they've held it in place for a year. And that with technology, they have weather modification technology, but he says now they can't hold it any longer, and it's starting to leak out. And
well, here's my question, caller. If they've got the technology to do that, why not? And if it's for benevolent purposes or for positive purposes, why not fix the problem? Why not go to Fukushima and have address the root cause of this cloud, for example?
Well, Carrie Cassidy has said she has heard that we do have the technology to fix it over there. He also said that Japan, he said that it was Israel, it was a planted nuclear bomb. There was 2 of them, one on a fault that's like 1,000 years old, the fault, and they put them about 50 miles out, and when it happened, it was a 9.2, and he says he has film on it. It was a 9.2 when it happened, but by the time it hit Japan, it was only like a 6.2. He says not a shingle has come off a roof, people driving, no buildings came down. It was the 45-foot tidal wave that did it, and he says Israel was mad at Japan because the Japanese were sending Iran material to build the nuclear bomb, and they were hurting, and they gave them $1 trillion, and they tried to do it, quietly, but Israel found out about it.
Well, and there's a lot of speculation about the causes, but I guess with respect to this cloud, let's get back to this cloud just momentarily here before we cut you loose. So what you're saying, according to what was on Mr. Wells' program, the guest, this cloud is going to affect California via the rainfall, obviously, radiation into the ground, and it's going to cause this mass exodus of people out of California?
That's what he was saying. He said he could see it. I don't know if that'll happen, but I could see where a lot of people will be leaving. And like I said, it was his last name was spelled Yantis, I believe, and it was February the 24th, episode number 12. And
I can tell you this. John Wells is really up on the Fukushima crisis, the Fukushima problem. So I'll try to get that
would be good. Because I know you've had him on your show,
right?
John,
and he's a great guy. He's a great guy.
Oh,
he's great. He'll fill us in, with respect to Fukushima and about this cloud, certainly.
Oh, that'd be
very
great, because this you and John shows the only two really, and Project Camelot I listen to. But thank you, and I'll be listening. This week's show sounds great.
Oh, it's going to be fabulous. Thank you very much for the call. We're going to move on a little bit so we can fit some more callers in.
Thank you.
God bless you, my friend.
Thanks for the call.
Same to you. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Tomorrow night, folks, don't forget Paul McGuire, and Thursday,
Russ Dizdar,
thank you. And
Friday
2 hours of John Moore. Okay.
Yeah, great lineup. I was really excited too. After we,
good job.
We're putting together in little pieces, trying to get everybody's schedule in order and not double book as we sometimes do because we don't communicate properly at all times.
We're going to have Dr. Robin Falkov on as well as Richard Hoagland.
Yeah, we got guests that have not been on before that we are attempting to get on. A lot of listener requests.
Right, and it's a lot of
working on
scheduling issues, really scheduling problems, because now we're getting back, or actually we're scheduling into, if you can believe this, May. So, all right.
Moving on here to other phone calls. Let's see. We're going to go to area code 360. You're up next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Doug and Joe.
Yes.
Doug and Joe. Yes, sir.
Speaking.
I just wanted to cover a couple of things real quick. This is Rick in Dakota up here in the Northwest, up in Washington State. Hey, there was a caller that called in when Ted Brower was on, and I really did enjoy that show with Ted Brower, if I'm saying that right, Brower probably. And he was talking about this whole thing with the third eye getting opened up, and I just wanted to speak to that. In Greek legend, Prometheus stole fire from the gods and gave it to men, and it's called Fire in the Minds of Men, or the Illuminated Ones. That's where the Illuminati come from. We do not want to have our third eye opened up. That's forbidden knowledge. You could look into Bill Schniblin, and he was everything that you could be evil. And thank God a little old lady at a bank, when he was cashing his or sending his tithe to the Church of Satan, she would pray for him, and that prayer from that little lady brought him out of captivity. So amen on that. A couple things I want to cover here real quick is that I would love to see you get the investigator that is being threatened right now for, he's an ex-state state trooper, that his job is to keep schools safe, and they've as much as threatened him for his questions regarding Sandy Hook. He makes some very valid points to why that is not what it would appear to be, including I believe that if there was a handler involved, that's all known, but I don't believe anyone died there. That's just my what I've come to, the conclusion I've come to. A couple other things that I wanted to cover real quick. I know time is short. Today or yesterday's show, I was listening to it at work, and there was a real good speaker that called, and he was talking, and one of the errors that he made, I just want to talk about, is, the Lord said that he put his word above his own name. And I love the guy, but he was in error when he said that it's not Scripture that's going to save us. I want to tell you, because he said that Satan knows the word and knows it better than us. Well, Satan is a beast, and he's got the mind and heart of a beast. And when he has quoted Scripture, he changes it, just like he does with, he compromises everything that is of God. I would like to say that without the Scripture, we can't even come to faith. And so by memorizing Scripture and knowing Scripture, and because he's a beast, if you are under attack from the enemy, having Scripture memorized, he will flee. There's definitely power, and Scripture will help us. And I'm not attacking him because I thought he was great, but we all have error, and that was one thing that I wanted to point out. And I even have do we have the verse there, how he changed it? Okay, well, we don't have time for that, but it is. You can look up when Jesus was in the wilderness and he was quoting Scripture to him. He was changing it. But I just wanted to say that the mind control that is upon us now is so rampant. I spent the day doing some spiritual battling in the city of Bellingham, where our museum is promoting global warming with the vanishing ice at the museum, and then outside my favorite coffee stand now has artwork from the Bellingham city commerce that is a canary sitting on top of an ice hook, and in our police station we have twisted metal that would, for those that are under mind control, would look like metal that came from 9/11, and it's twisted, and it says donated by a anonymous source. And it's all used, all this stuff is used for, to keep people that are asleep, because they see that and they go, well, that's got to be true. The city's behind it, the museum is behind it, the police station's behind it. And I really do believe that Scripture and prayer and, Psalms 3, that song that we found on YouTube, He is a shield. I'll tell you what, there are... That is, and being prepared. Obviously, we love learning. That lady called the other night, and she was just pointing out deals at some of these stores where flour could be bought cheap and stuff like that. I love that, and being prepared. But spiritually, and having him as our shield, and that is our faith, and that comes from the Word of God. I'll even say that when you talk about compromise, you know me, I've called in before that I believe anything outside the King James Bible is just a lie. And even that New King James, it's got the tri-skull on it, and that's showing the DNA with the fallen ones and the manipulation there, and of course they like putting that in our face. But anyways, I love you guys, and we're going to try to go to Montana and rub elbows with you guys, and how exciting that will be. And we're doing everything we can to promote that show. Any way we could get people that are like-minded down there to kind of support Steve Quayle and the likes of the other speakers. Also, Greg Everson, we sure enjoy him. And again, another plug for Stan Deyo. That guy is just, I'm slow to align myself with anyone. You know, I don't want to be a follower of man, but I'll tell you what, he has really grown on me. It's such a treat on Tuesdays to have Stan Deyo. He calms me, and he's just got a really awesome perspective. We love you guys, and we are praying for you. And I just, thanks for letting me get my 2 cents in. And we got kicked out of our church. The meow men and the poultry droppings that were taking place there, they kicked us out because we don't believe in the pre-trib. It's not in the Bible. And we had to go because we would upset the apple cart there. And so we're seeing it. You know, Pastor Langford, he hits the nail on the head when he says that, you know, we're all going to come under attack. You can see this. You guys have connected the dots to where this all ends up getting blamed on the Christians. And I got a call from a gal that was going to college here, and she was talking how if you heard what the instructor was saying in that class, moving against our First and Second Amendment and also promoting homosexual or the gay agenda right there in the classroom, it blew my mind what he was talking about. And so we need to attack these things with the Word of God and have the faith that praying that Word over those situations will change things, and it does. And maybe Bill Schniblin would be a good one to get on. I mean, the guy, he was a vampire. He was in the Mormon Church, the Catholic Church. He'll tell you all about having your third eye opened up, but praise the Lord, he came out of that. He's been on the Prophecy Club, which, is good. That'd be somebody that would really be able to. He woke us up on a lot
I've got
of
his
things,
books,
different holidays.
Compliments of Marianne. I've got all of his books. I think all of them that he's written. Okay, now is he still on the speaking? Does he still do public speaking engagements? I was.
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah,
that would be amazing. He'd be an amazing guest.
Very interesting. Yeah, he was on the dark side to such an extent that he was actually lusting after the blood to the point of incredible story. And it reminds me of the people who watch these vampire movies or vampire series today. I mean,
man.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he actually lost a dark-sided friend, and he had to go upstairs and tell the wife, "Well, your husband will never be back." He reached inside the circle. I don't understand. I don't want to know, but he broke the rules of what they were playing in, and he disappeared right there into the floor. And so anyone that doesn't think that this stuff is real, and I believe that's why Obama right now is untouchable, because you can't tell me that one person, congressman or woman, couldn't stand up and start impeachment proceedings, but he has got, because of the bloodshed, power as well. And so we need to pray for that man. I don't hate that man, but I do pray for him. I pray that not necessarily that it's not that I think that he's going to be born again or anything, but that the things that he's doing will backfire.
Well, yeah, and
they won't come to fruition
too. Look, we've got
Hillary,
a lot of rituals going on.
Mr. Hillary Clinton.
Exactly. We have so many occult rituals taking place in Washington, D.C., if people knew the truth. And Russ Dizdar, I hopefully will speak to that on Thursday. Speaking privately to Russ Dizdar, I got to tell you, you talk about a real-life investigator of satanic ritual abuse and satanic ritual crimes. Stuff like this, it makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up, and I've seen some pretty ugly things. I got to tell you, what Russ Dizdar is into is something totally well beyond anything most men have ever seen before. So hopefully we can get him to talk on that. Caller, God bless you.
And one more thing for Joe is listen to the song Psalms 3 on YouTube. And which one do we like? I can't think of. Paul Bagley even sings it good. But singing Scripture is powerful when you're under attack. And I know for the truth you guys are enveloping and spreading, that this attack, these things are real. Learn that song because it'll come to you and you can sing it. And I'm just saying this as a friend. It'll help you. So, anyways, God bless you guys. We love you.
Appreciate it. And we love you too. Thanks for spreading the word about the conference, and hopefully we get together and sit down and have a talk or a cup of coffee while we're there.
I'm taking you up on that coffee. All right. Bye.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We got about less than 2 minutes of our show left. I got to tell you something. A lot of things are happening at breakneck speed, and folks, tomorrow night we're going to be talking in depth with Paul McGuire about what he sees, in particular, the backstory behind the global conflagration or the global crisis, the Russian perspective, and how the groundwork was laid for this really years ago, and how it will play out in his mind. He's got an interesting perspective on all of this, plus delving into a little bit more deeply into what he talked about last time, and that's the subtleties of the satanic influence in society today.
Yeah, and we have a lot on that too that we can discuss with him. That's very important and timely. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow's show with Paul McGuire. Thursday, Russ Dizdar. Friday, John Moore. Sunday, Steve Quayle and Pastor Langford. It's going to be a great end of the week. I hope we can see you all here. And until then, God bless each and every one of you. Stay safe. We will see you tomorrow with Paul McGuire.
And thanks for listening.
Absolutely. Have a great night.